Hey everybody, Josh here. In case you missed it, tickets for our live show are now on sale. The show's on Sunday, May 24. That is the day before Memorial Day at Littlefield in Brooklyn. And for the next week, tickets will be available exclusively via our Patreon, patreon.com/worstofall. Your patron-only promo code will access that on sale, as well as a discount of $5 per ticket, only for the next week. After that, on April 22, the general on sale will open up, and I can tell you just from this morning's on sale already, tickets are moving fast. We hope to see you there. On with the show.
I think there are just cruise people, then there are people who are not cruise people, and you just can't become, like, one can't become the other. So it's kind of not fair. Like, I got put on the ship, and there's almost nothing they could have done to have made me happy. Like, that is just not a place where I'm going to be happy. Everyone aboard is having almost the exact same experience, but at the same time, there's nothing like communist or spiritual about it. It's like, how are we all doing the exact same thing, but at the same time, it just doesn't feel like we're sharing anything. It's just very demonic to me.
JP, I have never felt as immediately close to a guest as I do in this moment. I think the one thing they could have done, at least for me on a cruise ship, was to sink the ship. I think that was like, if we just got rid of this entirely.
At least we're all going down together, you know?
Yeah, like if we had done some piracy, if we had like kind of commandeered a Disney vessel, like that would have been pretty cool. Something to write about.
Yeah, that was like the original cruise ship, being a pirate.
I think so. Or like, you know, if they had put me on something many times weirder than they did, like if it was a Mormon cruise, there's like an Atlantis cruise where like everyone is gay and just sort of like constantly having gay sex, and like I could have really observed something on a ship like that. This was just like, I don't know, I was looking for something extreme, some like intense feeling that I could capture, and I felt the opposite of intense feeling the whole time. I felt very numb. I felt like there was just nothing happening in my brain the whole time, and I don't know, I'm still recovering. I still feel pretty dumb.
Check this out. April 2026. Richard Branson is now master of the seas. Only the Disney fleet stands before him. Cruise ships are now battlefields.
So many possible worlds, but we got this one. So many possible worlds, but we got this one.
Welcome to the Worst of All Possible Worlds, the first and only podcast to be your master and commander. I am the worst of all possible AJs.
I'm the worst of all possible Bryans.
And I'm the worst of all possible Joshes. And we are here today for an episode that is not even a little bit about cruise ships.
It's not about cruise ships.
It is about the same emotional feeling as going on a cruise ship, I guess.
We are talking about the 1991 novel American Psycho by Bret Easton Ellis, as well as its 2000 film adaptation. We have a fantastic guest joining us today. We're very excited to have him. He's the writer of Hola Papi, How to Come Out in a Walmart Parking Lot and Other Life Lessons, and the recently retired advice column of the same name. And he is planning a return to the Catholic Church in the upcoming American Schism, or at least that's my understanding. You can also find him on Substack at johnpaulbrammer.substack.com. JP Brammer, welcome to the show.
Pope John Paul III is here.
Hey! If JD Vance doesn't take the position, you are our new pope now.
If JD Vance takes the position, I will become a Templar Knight. Know that.
That sounds right. JP, you posted on Blue Sky, right? About like, oh my God, American Psycho, read it, need to talk about it. AJ, I think, right, you quickly followed up, you slid into those replies.
Well, I was just like, this is a writer I've respected for like at least 10 years, saying that he wants to talk about American Psycho. And I was like, I've always wanted to read the book. I'm a big fan of the movie. What an excuse to do so. And much to my utter amazement and delight, you agreed to come on the show to talk about it. But yeah, what was it about American Psycho that like jumped out at you, JP?
So I read The Shards, Bret Easton Ellis's most recent novel. And that really swept me up. And like a friend of mine read it at the same time, and we just became like a 2-person book club where we just could not stop talking about this book. And I was aware of Bret Easton Ellis before then, but mostly for the time that like his boyfriend took over his Twitter account. I don't know if you remember this. We need crazier authors. I think authors used to be crazier. And so, cause like, I don't know, I read authors online, sometimes their social media presence, and a lot of it is just like, watch this HGTV show with me. And it's very cozy and it's very like safe. And we don't have too many authors who are just like very publicly, visibly insane. And so Bret Easton Ellis, like he just had this like boyfriend / methed out twink in his house who took over his social media for a day and was just tweeting like absolute nonsense, like very clearly not in the best headspace. Like what is going on here? Really like sent ripples across the timeline that day. And I think that's what authors should be doing. They should be clocking in and like making culture happen. Like if you're not writing a book, if you're gonna be on social media, like make it count, you know? Yes. So I was like reading this and I was like, wow, that's Bret Easton Ellis. That's his Twitter account. I kind of know him as the author of American Psycho. I think American Psycho is what he's probably most known for, I would say.
Absolutely, yeah.
I was aware of like
and
Less
the
Than Zero.
Canyons. The Canyons.
That
was a huge cultural event.
Yeah. And so I read the Shards and I was like, now this is a sick, interesting mind, like at work, you know? Yeah. And so after reading the Shards, couldn't stop thinking about it. I decided to finally take the plunge and read American Psycho. And I'll get into it later, but this inspired me to then watch the movie because I know there was a debate on which one was better. Maybe less of a debate. It seems like everyone says like, oh, actually the movie's better. Like the movie improves on the book.
Yeah, it's interesting. There are these two books written by gay lunatics, right? Fight Club and American Psycho, that both get these movie adaptations. This all kind of happens around the same time for both the publishing of the books and the release of the movies. And in both cases, you have a large contingent of people who are like, no, the movie is the better version of the two. And they're both books, again, by gay lunatics, writing about heterosexual lunatics, but in a way that is appealing also to straight men in elucidating things that they're not quite able to say about themselves.
Although, is Patrick Bateman heterosexual? I think that's something that is interesting that I was not expecting in the book. Having previously seen only the movie myself, I then went back to the book. I read it in 2 days, which was
probably not advisable.
An endurance test. And then immediately turned right around and watched the movie and was surprised at how basically as an adaptation, the film takes what I could only describe as a vertical slice of the book and expands it. But there's a whole lot of things in the book that the movie doesn't touch on at all. And those are some of the things that I'll be interested in talking about today.
Yeah, and there's a lot too, I think, once you've read the book and then you watch the movie, a lot of the subtext of the movie like really screams louder to me. Like the whole scene with Lewis and Bateman in the bathroom together and sort of the what's even happening with Patrick Bateman in that moment and the actual panic in the moment. It's so much clearer in the book because we were in his head the whole time. We'll get into that more when we talk about Bret Easton Ellis and his particular journey with his own sexuality. But I think that a lot of the anger and rage that Bateman feels in the book and in the movie stems from the fact of from this own self-hatred and this own self-loathing that is then has nowhere to go and so shoots itself out at the entire world around him, including in the book, by the way, a child that he stabs in a zoo.
That's right. I feel like this is as good a time as any to say, you know, we are going to be talking not just about the movie, which is, I think, a somewhat edgy R-rated movie. We're also going to be talking about the book, and we are going to be quoting from it, and we are going to be discussing a lot of really, I would say, pretty disturbing subject matter in detail. That's kind of what you have to do to critically engage with a piece like this. So if you don't want to listen to discussion of rape, murder, child dismemberment, cannibalism, etc., this might not be the episode for you. Just wanted to throw that out there right away just to clear things.
And before we get to the cannibalism, we should talk about Bret Easton Ellis and his life leading up to American Psycho. He had a pretty normal childhood. He grew up in Los Angeles and Sherman Oaks specifically. He would later claim that Patrick Bateman was based on his father, that he would later recant and say, no, Patrick Bateman is entirely based on me and the anger that I felt at the time. But his father was an investment banker, and, you know, there does seem to be at least some elements from his childhood that make its way into American Psycho.
Sigmund Freud, you will always be famous.
So from the Southern California perspective, what is Sherman Oaks? What does that mean? Does that mean anything to us?
Yeah, it's a pretty nice community. It's sort of like a gated community. There was I think a TV show that was set there that I think was played for one season. I cannot remember the name of it, but it was like one of those weird. Yep, it's all gone. So
it's a place you forget the moment you leave.
Yeah, apparently. So in 1985, his first book, Less Than Zero, is published, and he's still 21 at the time. He's at Bennington College in Vermont. He had been working on it for about 5 years, so he started it when he was 17 years old. I think that it's very try-hard, is what I'll say about Less Than Zero. Okay. It makes a huge splash, right? Like this book is a hit, and it is adapted pretty much immediately into a movie.
So you're telling me a 21-year-old author is going to be a try-hard? Say it ain't so.
I know, but the difference is that Bret Easton Ellis never really grew out of that. So we move on to his second novel.
Excuse me. This is fired. This is the opinion of someone who has not seen The Canyons.
That is true.
I don't even know what you're talking about.
When he wrote The Canyons, he grew out of the whole idea of writing entirely.
I need to Google The Canyons.
It's a wild movie.
It's a movie he made with
a Paul Schrader
starring Lindsay Lohan and canceled porn star James Dean before he was canceled.
Oh, right. Y'all should have had me watch this.
We can have you back on to talk about The Canyons. This movie's kind of an obsession of mine because of just how bad it gets.
It says people also on the Google results says people also ask, is Bret Easton Ellis LGBTQ?
Great question.
There's a thing that happens to authors sometimes where they write something, it gets adapted into a successful movie, and then they're like, I can write movies now. He wrote one draft of the screenplay when David Cronenberg was attached to it with Brad Pitt set to star as Patrick Bateman. And Cronenberg was like, I don't want graphic violence. I don't want all these scenes of people sitting at tables. That's not cinematic.
Sorry, David Cronenberg didn't want graphic violence?
And he's like, I don't want it longer than 70 pages because when I film a screenplay, it takes me 2 minutes per page, not one. And so Bret Easton Ellis went off and wrote a draft, but he was already just like done. Like he had done American Psycho, he had done all the press, he had done all this other shit and talked about it for years. He was like, I don't want to write just my book again. So he wrote this totally different thing that ended with a musical number on top of the World Trade Center.
He wrote Joker too?
And he handed it in and everyone's like, this sucks. And he's like, yes, it does.
Money, please. And he got paid. So his second novel is called The Rules of Attraction. It was also adapted into a movie in 2002. He says it's the most faithful adaptation of any of his work that's ever been done. And the book itself stars a character named Sean Bateman, who does not appear in the American Psycho movie, but there's a whole segment in the book where Patrick hangs out with his little brother Sean.
Oh, that's right. Yep. Fuck.
I read this article, an interview that he did with Vogue in 2019, which I think does a pretty good job of summing up Ellis's whole deal. And JP, I was wondering if you would read for me Ellis's response to this, and Brian, if you could read the interviewer.
There were certain times reading this book where I couldn't help but think that you were on some much larger meta trip and were completely fucking with us just to get a rise.
Look, no. My job isn't to trigger millennials into hysteria. But I have to say that when it happens, it's rather delicious. But whether I'm damned or not damned, none of it is a fake out. I believe everything in the book.
Are you concerned about a critical backlash from white?
There's already a backlash.
Or is there a part of you that delights in just freaking people out?
I don't want to make anybody freak out. People are already freaked out. I mean, if you just don't want to say anything, great. But if you're creative and you're a writer and you're a public person and you have opinions, you have to be true to yourself. And however other people react to it should have nothing to do with why you write and why you express yourself. If people are so triggered by this that there is a backlash, what can I do about that? Go back and re-edit it? Apologize for it? Say, I didn't really feel this? You're suggesting with that question a relationship between the audience and the artist, and I don't think you can really create with the audience being over your shoulder and trying to placate them and appease them and trying to make them like you.
And I kept that whole thing because I think you could probably sum him up with that first section of just like, I don't mean to trigger people, but when I do, it's delicious, right?
Yeah,
but I think it's a little bit more complicated than that, and why I can never really fully write off Bret Easton Ellis as just being, an edgelord or being, a log cabin libertarian. It's because I think he is a real artist who is saying some very real things, but he's also just like, but I'm just asking questions, and that sort of layer is on top of everything that he's pretty much ever written, including American Psycho, because
including the canyons,
especially in the canyons.
It's funny because not only am I the only person on this podcast who has seen the canyons, I'm also the only person who's seen the canyons.
Yeah. I've seen a clip from the canyons, and I went, no, thank you.
Yeah, I mean, I'm really feeling what he's saying, honestly, just because, when I write, I do feel this nagging insecurity, anxiety telling me like, are people going to yell at me about this? Are people going to be mad at me? And especially with, I started writing when kind of concurrent with the rise of Twitter, where Twitter sort of became like the editor for a lot of people, where everything was written for the Twitter screenshot, where it's like, well, if someone screenshots this part and posts it online, then everyone's going to be mad at me. So like, you just don't write that part, right? But sometimes that part in tandem with the rest of the piece is what makes the whole thing sing. And I have definitely gutted some of my pieces before, like many years in the past, especially when I was like young and starting out, in the service of this imaginary audience of critics. And so I'm understanding where he's coming from, and I respect what he's saying. At the same time, having read some of his work, I'm just like, I don't know. I guess I just don't buy that this is the full explanation.
There's always something a little bit hidden about him. A lot of his public persona does seem to be a performance in the way that Bateman is also doing a performance. I want to be very clear. I don't think Bret Easton Ellis is a psychopath, but I do think that that was his way into Bateman, was that I feel like I am constantly performing in a way a psychopath would.
Well, and Ellis also, like, he has a podcast. He's an old podcaster. He's been doing this since like 2012 or 2013, but it's not really about him. He just interviews various famous people in his life. And the podcast itself is very good at drawing criticism and controversy, because he just had Tarantino on, and that was where Tarantino was talking about how he hates Matthew Lillard.
Oh my God.
Everyone was yelling. It was Bret Easton Ellis' podcast. Yeah.
So let's talk about American Psycho, the book itself. It's the late 80s, and Ellis is living in New York, and he has a fair bit of money now. He's gotten 2 books published, right? And he's living easy, and he starts living what he refers to as the gentleman's quarterly life, which is hanging out with Wall Street guys, giving himself entirely over to materialism, getting makeovers every weekend. And he just starts feeling this incredible loneliness at the core of all this. And he feels himself becoming increasingly isolated from his friends and family. And so he channels that into the writing of his third book, American Psycho, which the title of which comes from he saw a marquee where they were playing Psycho 3
and American Anthem.
But they didn't have room on the marquee, so it just said American Psycho. And he was just like, that's the name of my book.
And what I'll say about this is, I've done my time in corporate, and I never had to be exposed to the true psychos, really. But I definitely did come across them from time to time. Like, I have my stories of, like, I would be out at a party and all the guys from Goldman would come in. They all looked exactly the same. They all wore the same shirts. They all talked the same way. They all had the exact same vision for what they wanted to do in life, which is to say making lots of money. And they were all 27 years old.
Perpetually 27 years old. And Simon & Schuster are set to publish the book on December of 1990, but they release an excerpt from it in Time magazine, and it details one of the more grisly murders in the book. And this happens in late October, and by mid-November, Simon & Schuster are like, absolutely not, we are not publishing this book.
Oh, wow.
They cite creative differences, but it does seem to be like maybe the published excerpt did not meet expectations.
I know at some point, maybe this is after the book was published and everything, I know at some point Gloria Steinem gets involved.
Yes, that's a little bit later.
Okay.
Because the day after Simon & Schuster say we're not going to do it, the very next day, Vintage Publishing, which is a subsidiary of Random House, picks up the book for publication rights. And this leads to the galleys from the Simon & Schuster draft to be leaked to the public, specifically to Tammy Bruce. She does not say how she got these, but she was the head at the time of the Los Angeles chapter of the National Organization for Women. And she would later, of course, serve as the spokesperson for the State Department for Donald Trump.
Let's go.
In his second term. And she calls the book repugnant for its violence against women. And she reads specifically the part where Patrick Bateman, which is not in the movie, it is drawn in one of his like drawings at the end of the movie where a woman gets crucified with a nail gun.
Yes.
And she reads that out loud. Again, devoid of context, like you were saying, JP. And people were like, yeah, that sounds really grisly, including Gloria Steinem herself, Christian Bale's stepmother, as it turns out.
Yeah, CIA asset Gloria Steinem. Yeah,
and she releases a thing about boycotting the book. It's panned on its release by pretty much every single U.S. publication.
Really?
And I think the Los Angeles Times was the one who gave it a positive review. And then Ellis claims that they got so much like hate mail that a whole bunch of people like canceled their subscriptions immediately after that review came out. I can't find any evidence to this, and I just feel like it's one of those things that's like, oh, they were so mad they must have canceled, you know.
I don't think any of us are strangers to moral panics, you know.
No.
But more often than not, moral panics tend to be led by religious organizations, by the church, you know.
Right.
And I'm just curious if anybody had any thoughts about secular feminists leading a religious style campaign of essentially book banning.
Well, these things kind of merged together at this point in time, right? It was very similarly bipartisan with the moral panic around violence in video games, the Night Trap stuff, Tipper Gore, Hillary Clinton, and Jack Thompson, the Focus on the Family acolyte, all teaming up to talk about video game violence, video game sex, and of course, swears in songs and things like that. That was just culturally where everyone seemed to be at the time. And I can understand why Bret Easton Ellis wouldn't necessarily lean too much on the like, well, just millennials get triggered all the time, because he did go through this already, 40 years ago, 35 years ago.
He was triggering Gen Xers and boomers.
Yeah, dude. Just being on Twitter, I feel like there's a new moral panic every month. I mean, I'm not on it at the moment, but I remember back in the heyday, there was like new ones that came and went from people that you wouldn't expect, people who declare themselves to be, virtuosic people, activists, people who are always saying that they're for the good of everyone, kind of like they don't know that they're doing it, but like who does? Like who is able to identify like, oh, I'm in the middle of a moral panic right now. There were ones that were just like around gay men specifically, like, oh, gay men are harmful. They're trying to bring kink into pride. They're trying to have sex in front of everyone. They're trying like they're monsters actually. They're like sex obsessed. And that one lasted quite a while. And so I see people I think there's a censorious instinct in everyone. And it can come to the surface based on different triggers. But yeah, I wish that religions had the what's it called, monopoly on it. I think lots of people can do it.
You're saying that you think Catholics should have monopoly on this?
Yeah, I think they should work harder.
Got it. Okay, cool.
Like, they used to.
Catholics, have you ever thought about trying, maybe?
You gotta try, man.
Gotta try.
And so in the grand tradition of Ellis novels, American Psycho also gets a film adaptation. And this is where the producer Ed Pressman walks into the scene.
So Ed Pressman, you might know him for such works as the Street Fighter movie, or The Crow, or Bad Lieutenant. He's very good at producing like pretty iconic movies. Even if they're terrible, they're iconically terrible. And the first name that gets attached to this is Stuart Gordon. Stuart Gordon was an experimental Chicago theater maker. He worked with Mamet back in the day on like sexual perversity in Chicago, and then he makes his way into movies, makes these great sort of Sam Raimi inspired films like Reanimator is probably his most famous one. This doesn't really go anywhere. And then David Cronenberg gets involved. I talked about Ellis's script for that, where he didn't care about the property anymore and just wrote musical numbers on the World Trade Center. So then Mary Harron comes along, and she had just had a hit with an independent film that she made called I Shot Andy Warhol, about Valerie Solanas. She was in a position where she could be talking to producers and looking for the next project, and she thought, that one looks interesting to me. And throughout her career, she's never quite had a movie as successful as American Psycho, but also American Psycho wasn't that successful when it first came out. right? In the case of the book and the movie, these are two things that just have had these incredibly long tails.
Yeah.
It was in her process of casting that they got Christian Bale. I bring up all of this like back and forth of because this is not too atypical of movies. You know, you get one person attached, you get the next person attached. But because it's such an uphill battle, specifically for Mary Harron and Christian Bale, they both get fired off of the movie. In fact, they are fully attached to it. The script is getting written with Guinevere Turner, who had co-written and co-starred in Go Fish, a lesbian comedy from earlier. And part of what Harron and Turner were doing, they were saying, like, we're feminists, we have made very feminist movies, and we're adapting this work. So come and get me, Gloria Steinem.
During one of the times when Christian Bale was not guaranteed the role, they were going to Ewan McGregor with an offer. And Christian
Ewan
Bale,
McGregor was approached. Billy Crudup as well.
Yeah, Billy Crudup would have been, I think, pretty great too. But Christian Bale called Ewan McGregor and was like, "Please don't do this. I need this role."
Because Bale's not a big name yet.
No, he'd done Newsies.
So most of the writing here that Turner and Harron are doing is just lifted straight out of the text of the book.
But it's transformed pretty considerably.
It's remixed.
It's remixed. It's reordered. There are a few incomplete just insertions of new stuff to clarify it. And whereas the book is an uninterrupted stream of consciousness narrative, the movie... Well, it has to operate as a movie. And so there are certain things that are made considerably more literal. You don't feel lost watching the movie in the way that you often do reading the book. And that's by design.
And a thing that really solidifies that in turning narration into dialogue, I found Mary Harron talking about this in the London Review of Books, and I thought this was really key to finding the core of the movie as its own entity. Does anyone want to read this?
I had been a music writer in my youth, writing about rock music, and I'd always loved in the novel the 3 chapters about Patrick Bateman's favorite music. I thought they were hilarious. They were brilliant parodies of Rolling Stone-style, somewhat self-serious music criticism, but they're about these very bland mainstream artists, Huey Lewis, Phil Collins, Whitney Houston. And what's great about this is that it's the one place in the book, in these 3 chapters where he talks about his favorite music, his favorite songs, that he really reveals himself. He's very emotional about how much he loves this mainstream pop music. Somehow, this is where he sees his soul reflected. There was something very funny about this. I was like, how do we keep this? How do we introduce this? And I remember being at a beach house with some friends, and I had the book with me, and I had what I thought was my one great idea. We're going to take some of this dialogue, this music chapter, turn it into monologues, and he's going to deliver one of them just before he kills someone, the first one. And then the next time he starts talking about music, and every time he starts talking about music, you're going to be afraid he's going to kill somebody. Apart from the business card scene, the music monologues are the things that most get memed and are part of the film's strange and enduring popularity.
And so even in this process, there was a point where Pressman was like, hey, we got DiCaprio. We could get DiCaprio as Bateman.
I'm so glad they didn't get Leo DiCaprio.
And Mary Harron was like, Bateman has to look like everybody else. Who the fuck how am I going to find 12 other Leonardo DiCaprios? Right. And so she refused. She just flat out refused. She's like, I'm not going to do this. And then they fired her, brought in Oliver Stone, and then Oliver Stone and Leo DiCaprio both quit. And then Bale and Harron ended up back in and got to make the movie the way that they saw it.
And that movie opens on some drops of blood. Or is it?
Ooh.
What if it's just ketchup or some shit? What if they're making food?
What I love about this movie as an adaptation is a lot of the stuff that's in the book is visualized. Like, they spend a lot of time just looking at this food in the way that Patrick Bateman in the book just endlessly, exhaustively talks about what food is in front of him and how it looks. Yeah. And also, I want to throw this out there. I think that Patrick Bateman has an eating disorder, or if not, particularly in the book, where he's like, every time I look at food, I get nauseous, and he orders these extravagant things and never eats any of them.
Yeah, let's give a sense of what this sounds like in the book.
Now the Shirelles are coming out of the speakers, dancing in the street. And the sound system plus the acoustics, because of the restaurant's high ceiling, are so loud that we have to practically scream out our order to the hardbody waitress, who is wearing a bicolored suit of wool grain With passementerie trim by Marron del Premonville and velvet ankle boots, and who I'm fairly sure is flirting with me. Laughs sexily when I order, as an appetizer, the monkfish and squid ceviche with golden caviar. Gives me a stare so steamy, so penetrating when I order the gravlax pot pie with green tomatillo sauce. I have to look back at the pink Bellini and the tall champagne flute with a concerned, deadly expression so as not to let her think I'm too interested. Price orders the tapas, and then the venison with yogurt sauce and fiddlehead ferns with mango slices. McDermott orders the sashimi with goat cheese, and then the smoked duck with endive and maple syrup. He sounds so gross.
Sashimi with goat cheese? What the fuck?
What is happening? Van Patten has the scallop sausage and the grilled salmon with raspberry vinegar and guacamole. The air conditioning in the restaurant is on full blast, and I'm beginning to feel bad that I'm not wearing the new Versace pullover I bought last week at Bergdorf's. It would look good with the suit I'm wearing.
Roughly 30% of the book is this.
Yeah, so my hot take, because like I said, I've been hearing, even before I read the book or watched the movie, everyone has been telling me, oh, the movie actually improves on the book. That's just sort of like been the talking point. I read the book, and then I watched the movie, and I kind of disagree because I think that, so the first half, I would say roughly the first half of American Psycho, I was bored to tears. It was just like...
The book, you mean?
Yes.
Yes.
It was just a collection of lists. It was just list after list. It was like what I'm wearing, what I'm eating, where we're going tonight. And I was like, what is it about this book that people love so much? But when it started to slowly introduce this malice into it, like I kind of really appreciate that I had the tedium of these lists, because I think those lists kind of portray a certain mundanity. It's like, okay, it's like there's sort of the lines, the really straight lines through everything. And it's like everything's boring. Everything is very uniform. Everything is the same. And then this really malevolent entity, this face, starts to slowly emerge from behind those lines. And as a reader, like the experience of that was just really cool to me. It was like, if I didn't have the boring first half of it, if it wasn't just a series of descriptions of luxury goods and food and, you know, stuff around his apartment, I think I wouldn't have appreciated it as much, because to me, that book is sort of identifying this id that's really hard to describe and name and actually portray. And so it does it by painting it in the negative as this thing that's just like lurking behind average, ordinary things. And I think I didn't get that so much out of the movie, which I liked in a different way. I liked them both in like different ways. But the feeling that I got out of the book, I think, was more potent for me.
Yeah, I think there's an accelerative effect that happens in the book, particularly like in the back third, as the murders that he is committing grow more and more horrifying and gruesome. But we start to see less and less and less of enumerating every single little detail, because he starts to lose track of the details. And there's something very jarring about that, because it indicates that he too is losing control.
Yeah. And like the same kind of monotonous voice that he uses for those lists kind of becomes the same voice that he uses to monotonously describe what he's doing to these victims. And so to me, it creates this link between the sort of like ordinaries of his life versus this really extraordinary, gruesome thing that we're reading. And so it shows me a mind that kind of doesn't distinguish between these things. It's sort of like, like my dinner at this fancy restaurant is this sex worker that I'm like decapitating right now. And to me, that was more chilling, I guess.
Oh, absolutely. And I will also say that Patrick Bateman is also a connoisseur of fusion restaurants, much like you are, JP. In your excursions to the Irish Mexican restaurant in New Jersey, he goes to an Italian Thai place on the Upper East Side.
That's so funny.
And they start getting like more, as the book continues, they start to get more and more strange, to the point where he can't even describe the restaurants anymore. To your point, that he's starting to lose track of the details.
Yeah, the way that we see food at the beginning, right after the opening titles, and the opening titles are done like business cards, basically. It's like, it feels like you're looking at paper. It's kind of like the opening of last year at Marienbad.
Yeah.
Because you're seeing the blood, and the blood itself is kind of sensual, because that is the one thing that stokes any kind of passion or something approaching passion in Patrick Bateman. And so we actually see that kind of flow into the food itself. The food is not as boring or prosaic as just the chapters of lists. And in fact, it feels like the food shots might have inspired Brian Fuller a little bit for Hannibal.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, I bet
20
actually.
years later.
I will say, though, to the point of things that are boring and prosaic, the fucking conversations that this guy
God.
has with his horrible friends.
His horrible friends.
Sri Lanka, man, you know. The Sikhs are killing the Israelis.
What I love is that all of his friends, who are not really friends, they're just colleagues of his,
Yeah.
they are so fungible and interchangeable with each other that they lose track of each other, particularly in the book. They are constantly referring to each other by the wrong names.
Yeah.
One of the big contrasts that I noticed between the movie and the book is that the mechanical purpose of these scenes, the food scenes, the conversation scenes, is fundamentally different. In the movie, it is doing the work of plotting, which is to say, here's the characters, here's the exposition for the things you need to know about them.
Oh, yeah.
And here is what is grounding the stakes for what is going to happen from here on out. Because the movie could have been a much more abstract piece, but instead the adaptation is actually quite literalistic and linear.
Yeah.
In the book, on the other hand, and you sort of heard it in that excerpt, the point is to just overwhelm you and also bore you.
He will sometimes refer to Timothy Price as either Price or Tim or Timothy, sometimes in the same paragraph, to deliberately be like, but wait, who's Timothy again? And who is, so Price will sometimes then talk to Timothy to the point where it's Bateman who doesn't know who's talking and who's receiving that information. And I think that's very cool and very debilitating. And I also think impossible to do in a movie.
Yeah, for
when
sure.
you have Justin Theroux sitting there and it's
Yeah,
like,
like-
that's Justin Theroux.
Well, while reading it, one thing I liked, and this is just like a personal reading on my end, I don't know if the text actually bears this out, but it kind of felt like this malevolent id thing was just traveling between people, and Patrick Bateman wasn't real. So it was sort of like,
Like
a
a vessel.
collective project on all their
Sure.
ends, where like it actually wasn't them mistaking for each other. It was more just like the Patrick Bateman spirit was just like constantly moving through all these clones, basically. And it was a way to portray like this class of people as the collective Patrick Bateman is sort of what I got out of it. And it was cool to see it that way.
I love that interpretation.
It's like wandering Sumerian spirit.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, but it'll be like American and wearing a business suit. Yeah. Well, like the part, it is a weird word to use for it, but the most magical part of the book for me, the part that really gave me vertigo was where he's describing that, I think it's the one where he's running from the cops and like it becomes like
Yes.
GTA, like the helicopters are after him.
It shifts into third person all of a sudden. Yeah.
When it shifts into third person and there's just this completely destabilizing, dissociative effect that like hits you as well as like it's literally depersonalized because suddenly it
Yes.
becomes like, and then Patrick Bateman does this and you're used to the eye of it all.
Yeah.
And then suddenly it shifts.
I think to the point of the eye of it all, I wanted to play a clip here. This is, of course, a famous clip from the movie. Patrick Bateman talking about his skincare regimen.
After I remove the ice pack, I use a deep pore cleanser lotion. In the shower, I use a water-activated gel cleanser. Then a honey almond body scrub. And on the face, an exfoliating gel scrub. Then I apply an herb mint facial mask, which I leave on for 10 minutes while I prepare the rest of my routine. I always use an aftershave lotion with little or no alcohol, because alcohol dries your face out and makes you look older. Then moisturizer, then an anti-aging eye balm followed by a final moisturizing protective lotion. There is an idea of a Patrick Bateman. Some kind of abstraction, but there is no real me, only an entity, something illusory. And though I can hide my cold gaze, and you can shake my hand and feel flesh gripping yours, and maybe you can even sense our lifestyles are probably comparable, I simply am not there.
I'd like to take a moment here to just talk a bit about Christian Bale's performance and what makes it so unique and so distinctive. In my opinion, it is the thing that makes this movie work, alongside the direction, obviously, which I think is really brilliant. But he finds this strange, uncanny place, and he's also a beautiful man. Like, that goes without saying, but like his body is perfect. You know?
The note I took here is abs.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Just over and over again?
Question mark? Like abs?
Yeah. Exclamation point?
Which again, like, you wouldn't have gotten this with Leo DiCaprio. He doesn't look like this.
There's this, incredible handsomeness to Christian Bale, but also he can blend into these other faces. He looks like, in this movie especially, he looks like a generic sort of male model that you'd see in a watch ad in GQ in the late 80s. And this apartment, too, as an expression of his character, which was designed by Gideon Ponte, the production designer. It's the 80s. It has pieces from the 80s and earlier, but it has a very, like, 90s sensibility.
Very 90s.
It doesn't have the 90s pieces, which can have that sort of, like, cheap tackiness to them, but it's so desaturated. Most of the spaces that we see in this are, like, gray, white, slightly darker gray, slightly lighter gray, maybe a slate here and there. And his apartment exemplifies that more than any other space. And in fact, when we see the way that other people live in their apartments, like Paul Allen's apartment, it's more real. Mm-hmm. I also really like just listening to it just now and how you get all the little squishy sounds in the Foley for everything he's slathering on his face.
One of my favorite little Easter eggs from the book is that above his toilet, he has a framed photo of the Les Mis poster. Because Les Mis is all over the novel.
Is it really?
Everywhere. They're constantly talking about it.
Every other page.
I mean, it makes me think of Donald Trump and Phantom.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly.
And one of the arguments that I would make for Patrick Bateman being gay is simply that he has an opinion over which cast recording of Les Mis is better, the English or the American Broadway one. Mm-hmm. And I wish I could go back in time and tell younger me, hey, you have an opinion about which of those cast recordings is better. Maybe you should examine your sexuality, younger AJ.
Well,
perhaps that will solve some stuff for you.
Also, all over the novel is Donald Trump. Who shares a similar affinity for Broadway and who is at his heart like a Broadway queen. Like, a more like benevolent version of Donald Trump is someone who's just like bitching about Broadway all day, I think, and like kind of doing those like cast comparisons that you're talking about.
He produced a play in the 70s. It wasn't successful, but that could have set him down a totally different path in his life.
I mean, I've said this countless times. In the good version of the world, Donald Trump just edits page 6, you know?
And is also in jail for his many crimes.
The presence that Trump plays in the movie is basically there's like two moments. There's one where they see a car and they're like, is that Donald Trump's car? And then there's another point where they're at a restaurant and they're like, is that Ivana Trump?
Right. And both of those moments are in the book as well.
Yeah. And I think it's interesting that Donald Trump is just as interchangeable as everybody else in this story, where no one can keep anyone's name straight.
Yeah, it was really fascinating reading this and seeing Donald Trump pop up. I was almost like, I didn't quite know what to do with it because there's like an obvious reading that presents itself there where it's just like, oh man, like Donald Trump is one of these many kind of evil clones or whatever.
Yeah.
So I almost didn't want to touch it because I was just like, yeah, I don't know. It's a bit too obvious, but I'd be curious to hear because I don't know how anyone identifies here, but you know, as a homosexual, I was reading this book and I didn't get so much that Patrick Bateman was gay. What I got was that Bret Easton Ellis is gay and that he was trying to sort of like depict a straight man because every time he talked about a hard body, I just didn't buy it. He was always like, yeah, she's got like, she's a tight little hard body. I'm just like, all right, man. Like, I don't know if anyone like actually talks or thinks like that, but what is it about the writing that to you was just like, yeah, this Patrick Bateman is gay?
I think it was just the lusting after Lewis, I think, like, and how, you know, as someone who, you know, very much thought he was straight for a very, very long time, I would have these thoughts. I would have these very clearly homosexual thoughts, and I would just recontextualize them as being, no, that's not what I'm feeling. You know, that is not the desire that I'm feeling.
When in fact it was the bisexual impulse.
It was in fact the bisexual impulse. I turned into a couch briefly that said nobody believes me. I fully came to embody.
And then that couch stood up and started following Patrick Bateman around.
Yeah, absolutely.
Along with the park bench.
And I think that I saw a lot of the anger that I had when I was younger being directed at things that I similarly felt in the book, because he can't hurt Lewis, right? Ultimately, that's sort of the crux of that scene, is that he's trying to strangle him, but his fingers won't let him. Like, there's something intrinsically in him. Yeah,
I did want to say one more thing though about the way Patrick Bateman categorizes women, right? Where he says, "Oh, this hard body came up to me." It sounds a lot like incel culture and looks maxing culture today.
Yeah,
right?
absolutely.
It is this very gay, very homosocial.
He's clavicular coded, dude.
Yeah, he is. He is. It's just that those specific terms hadn't been coined yet.
Yeah. And we come to see from all of this how Patrick sees himself, which is to say a perfect specimen of humanity who is nevertheless completely empty. He is simply not there. We also get a sense of this from how he interacts with people socially. We had previously mentioned the conversation that he has with all of the people at this restaurant, Espace.
I have no idea. All these fucking restaurants. I was like, do some of these actually exist, or are these all just the products of a diseased mind?
In the book, it's a mix of real restaurants and imaginary ones. But I do love the running bit of the huge menu in the movie.
Where it's like chiseled into it, like the metal one.
It looks like the fucking 10 Commandments.
And the guy says it's written in Braille, and that's not in the book. That is a fully original movie line, and I love it so much.
But I also wanted to bring in something here once again from the book. This is a scene that also exists in the movie, but I want to do the book excerpt because, again, the way that it gets you inside of Bateman's head.
Yeah, I'll do that. Who is that? Price asks, staring over at the bar. Is that Reed Robeson? And by the way, Preston, you simply have a tab with a buttonhole sewn into the front of the shirt, which can then be attached by a button to your trousers. And make sure that the stiff pleated front of the shirt doesn't extend below the waistband of your trousers, or it'll rise up when you sit down. Now, is that jerk Reed Robeson? It looks a hell of a lot like him. Stunned by Price's remarks, Preston slowly turns around, still on his haunches, and after he puts his glasses back on, squints over at the bar. No, that's Nigel Morrison. Ah, Price exclaims. One of those young British faggots serving internship at... How do you know he's a faggot, I ask him. They're all faggots, Price shrugs. The British. How would you know, Timothy? Ben Patton grins. I saw him fuck Bateman up the ass in the men's room at Morgan Stanley, Price says. I sigh and ask Preston, where is Morrison interning? I forget, Preston says, scratching his head. Lazard? Where? McDermott presses. First Boston? Goldman? I'm not sure, Preston says. Maybe Drexel? Listen, he's just an assistant corporate finance analyst, and his ugly, black-toothed girlfriend is in some dinky rat hole doing leveraged buyouts. Where are we eating, I ask. My patience at an all-time low. We need to make a reservation. I'm not standing at some fucking bar. What in the fuck is Morrison wearing? Preston asks himself. Is that really a Glen Plaid suit with a checkered shirt? That's not Morrison, Price says. Who is it then? Preston asks, taking his glasses off again. That's Paul Owen, Price says. That's not Paul Owen, I say. Paul Owen's on the other side of the bar, over there. Owen stands at the bar, wearing a double-breasted wool suit. He's handling the Fisher account, someone says. I like that someone says. Who even cares anymore? Yeah. Lucky bastard, someone else murmurs. Lucky Jew bastard, Preston says. Oh, Jesus, Preston, I say. What does that have to do with anything? Listen, I've seen the bastard sitting in his office on the phone with CEOs spinning a fucking menorah. The bastard brought a Hanukkah bush into the office last December, Preston says suddenly, peculiarly animated. You spin a dreidel, Preston, I say calmly. Not a menorah. You spin a dreidel. Oh my God, Bateman, do you want me to go over to the bar and ask Freddie to fry you up some fucking potato pancakes? Preston asks, truly alarmed. Some latkes? No, I say, just cool it with the anti-Semitic remarks.
We love a woke king.
Yeah, and the book really poses him as that, right? For
At
first, they're like trying to get you on his side.
But he's kind of a chameleon when it comes to racism.
I also don't think it's the book trying to get you on side. What I think it is it's the book portraying him as somebody who cares about external appearances, but has a completely rancid soul.
Yeah.
This is one of the biggest differences, and one of the things I think where the book shines compared to the movie. Part of it is simply mechanical. You can't have this long of a conversation in a movie like American Psycho, but I'm curious to hear your thoughts about what mechanically is happening here, how it works, and what it does to your brain as you read it.
Yeah, it kind of just numbs your brain, puts it to sleep a little bit, despite the intensity of the language. So you've got like slurs, you've got anti-Semitism, all this stuff that's supposed to be like, if you posted any of this on Twitter, people would have yelled at you. But it's sort of like it's taking place in this very mundane sort of like, okay, this is just an average conversation for these guys. There's nothing out of the ordinary. It does such a good job of situating violence in a context where it's like, I don't care, man. Like, I feel like I'm on Xanax right now, which I imagine is what those like lunches and drinks feel like for those people. One of my favorite chapter titles of all time is from this book. It's titled A Confrontation with a Faggot. I've used that. I've used a picture of that for so many reactions, like in group chats.
And the use, actually, I should say, the use of the slur, right, is pervasive throughout the book, which I think is another interesting thing that points toward potentially the idea of Bateman himself being gay because he is so just obsessed with men's sexuality generally.
But also the way that these communities have to constantly reinforce their social order by defining certain things as too feminine or too faggy versus like the proper way to be obsessed with clothes and designers and clothes, you know?
Which is mailing GQ, I guess.
And I think sort of the biggest difference between like the look maxers of today and these jabronis hanging out, at this rancid bar somewhere in the financial district,
it's
right?
called Rancid.
Rancid, apologies. The menus are the size of a Honda. But I feel like the main difference is that they would never be caught dead at a Broadway show. Like there was a certain time where engaging with high art was part of this world that I feel like has gone the way of the dodo a little bit, right? Yeah. It's all about, you can't be grind maxing if you're sitting in the house watching, Les Mis for the 10th time.
Well, one thing I'm really fascinated with, and this kind of stretches from like modern day like clavicular all the way back to the rise of the metrosexual and Fight Club, where Fight Club, I've always seen that as like an extremely straight book and movie, despite all the homoeroticism in it. It seems to me that like the straighter something gets, like in terms of a heterosexual male, it just ends up becoming gay somehow. And, as like someone who's been gay all his life, I've never quite understood that, why like an entire locker room full of straight men who are into women will just like invent homosexuality of a kind, like the culture will just like go there. And I don't get it, but I'm interested in it.
I have such distinct memories of like when I was in high school, all of the dudes in the locker room after gym class would just like whip their dicks out and start comparing them, like that's just.
No, the straight guys I grew up with were way gayer than I was.
Yeah.
For sure. And there's just something to it, and there's something that it only seems like the gay men are able to see it at first.
I think there's something, this doesn't explain all of it, but there's definitely a relationship to taboo there, where like with the slurs and even here with like the anti-Semitic remarks and stuff like that, there is something daring and masculine about going there, right? And so you've got this.
It's like this guy doesn't even know anything about Jews. He's never even really given it this thought before, and he's just going to say it because he's with his boys. By the way, he's a Jew bastard who spins menorahs.
When you can break a rule together, it sort of bonds you in a way.
Yeah.
And so I think there's a lot of straight men who are like, we all know it's a rule that we can't be gay. Let's get a little gay. And it sort of like brings them close in a way.
And that's the thing that holds together so much of this world, the things that they are able to get away with as a unit. So we've talked a little bit about the men in Patrick's life. Now we might as well talk a bit about the women. Yeah. And there are three sort of core woman characters in this story. Jean, his secretary.
Chloe Sevigny.
She's so fucking good in this movie.
Unbelievable.
Evelyn, his fiance, who he hates, who's played by Reese Witherspoon.
Perfect casting.
Great
genuinely.
fucking casting. This was pre-Legally Blonde, right?
Yeah, I think she was still a bit of a name at that point, but
Right. She was on her way up. And then Courtney, who is his friend Luis, the one who he later will have fall in love with him. Courtney is Luis's fiance, And so, of course, Patrick is having an affair with Courtney. And she's played by Samantha Mathis. Again, all three of these women, fantastic performances.
Yeah, I think all the casting is pretty much perfect in this.
Yeah.
This has this element of, here are these high society people and all of the intrigues and sexual exploits that they get up to, but they're all complete blanks, though. That's what Bret Easton Ellis sees as like the modern American aristocratic class, as it were.
But a big change that the movie makes, and again, it's out of mechanical necessity, is that they have to give these characters a little bit more character.
Yeah.
And so there's sort of one scene that establishes each of them. Jean, we get a scene with her just in Patrick's office where she's helping him out with some shit. We have a scene with Evelyn in a taxi cab where she just kind of exists in a different world from Patrick altogether. He's just got his Walkman on with his headphones. And Courtney in the restaurant with him, he takes her out on a date. She's zooted out of her mind on something.
Yeah.
And the movie treats these characters as having more texture and agency to them, whereas obviously the book, being from Bateman's perspective, treats all of them with uniform disdain. And I'm curious to hear our thoughts about sort of the contrast there.
Having both of these texts is really helpful because you get it all from Patrick's perspective in the book, and then you watch the movie and you get more of a sense of what the world feels like, or not even like an objective truth, because the movie does play with that a little bit, but more just a more balanced perspective. It's not as visceral as reading the book is, because you're just trapped in a room with a bear for the whole time, like a wild animal that might attack you at any moment.
Shut up.
Yeah.
Been there.
Am I right?
Fellas, am I right?
But yeah, I think that like having this ability to sort of step out of it and see these women and feel for them, like as I do feel for the women in this book too, because even Bateman's like, she's so strung up she can't keep her head up, and my head's like, well, why is she like that? Why does she feel she has to do that? And I do feel empathy in that way, but seeing them as people in the movie goes a long way towards making me feel more for them.
There's like a lot more tension in the movie in that way, where it's like when he's about to kill his secretary and you can just feel like, oh no, I don't want this to happen to her. Whereas like, I feel like in the book, he's in so much control and he's so cool and calculated, and he has like thingified these women so much that it's almost hard to be like, oh no, I'm so scared for them. Whereas like in the movie, because we do get to see them as people and they get to kind of be people, it really does raise like some dread that wasn't present for them.
And the secretary especially feels like the most human out of any character that we spend time with.
And that's true in the book as well, I will say.
Well, one of the biggest reasons, though, that the movie specifically humanizes her is that she benefits from having like a neutral camera on her. That's one thing about this movie generally. Mary Harron's use of the camera is sometimes subjective and voyeuristic, but for the most part, it's just like, hey, you're watching this. It's a neutral camera. It's almost like you're watching a play sometimes.
Yeah, the cinematographer here is Andrei Sekula. He also did the cinematography for Pulp Fiction and Reservoir Dogs.
Oh, interesting.
But more importantly, to the interests of this podcast, he also shot Hackers.
Oh. But all of those movies are very aggressive
Pretty
with
stylish,
their cinematography.
Yeah, and they're doing a lot of things, and they're usually playing a lot more with color, which he doesn't have that sort of availability here.
Right.
And she's... Another movie that I could compare this to, you've never heard of this movie, but go watch it, called The Headless Woman, La Mujer Sin Cabeza. It's, I think, an Argentinian movie.
That's just any woman after a night with Patrick Bateman.
That's true.
That's true.
No.
Where a woman has this issue. She has run over a dog. You see it pretty clearly that it's a dog very early on, but she has this nagging thought, because she just drives away when it happens. She has this nagging thought that she actually ran over a child. And so the movie is shot in all of these very objective angles that show you the whole thing until the point where it just gets you to doubt what you previously saw.
Okay, kind of like this movie.
And that's what this movie is doing too. You can play ambiguity in a lot of different ways. You can, go Dutch angles or get weird with it. And here everything is played as straight, straight lines, parallel lines. There's no distortion from the lens. Everything is as straight as possible until it just starts to say things to you that can't align with each other. Mm-hmm. And so you have to choose one or the other or none of them because you can't choose all of them, which is so brilliant. This is something that Bret Easton Ellis has personally criticized about the movie, and I just think he's flat fucking wrong.
Wouldn't be the first time, yeah.
Yeah.
But the thing is, the book also does this. It just uses different tools because the tools of writing are different from the tools of filmmaking.
Mm-hmm. Particularly once we get to we'll talk about this once we hit the sex scenes themselves, but the differences between the way the book portrays those sex scenes and the movie is I think fascinating and completely night and day, because I would argue that the sex scenes in the movie are not from Bateman's perspective at all. They are in fact a much more objective view of sex, because if they were from Bateman's point of view, they would be a lot raunchier and a lot more like the porns that he watches.
Yes. Now, one thing that is pervasive throughout the book is Patrick constantly name dropping brands all the goddamn time. It's the shit that he's buying, mostly high-end electronics, as well as descriptions of what people are wearing. He never misses a beat in terms of who the designer is, what the piece is, and how those things fit together.
He doesn't just have a Walkman. He has a Sony Walkman, and it has all of these features where it auto flips the tape and everything.
That's right. And the way that the movie kind of pulls this off is a very famous scene where they all compare their business cards.
New card. What do you think?
Whoa, very nice. Look at that.
Picked them up from the printers yesterday.
Good coloring.
That's bone. And the lettering is something called Cillian Ring.
It's very cool, Bateman, but that's nothing. Look at this.
The card looks exactly the same.
Very nice. Eggshell with Romalian type. What do you think?
Nice.
Jesus. That is really super. How did a nitwit like you get so tasteful?
I can't believe that Bryce prefers Van Patten's card to mine.
But wait. You ain't seen nothing yet. Raised lettering. Pale nimbus. White.
Impressive. Very nice. Let's see Paul Allen's card.
Paul's not in the room with them, so they take his card out of their little stack.
And it's exactly the same.
Look at that subtle off-white coloring. The tasteful thickness of it. Oh my God. It even has a watermark.
And then next to him is Lewis.
Something wrong? Patrick? You're sweating.
Mary Harron said that Christian Bale can control his sweat glands. Like he can just sort of sweat or stop sweating
That's
on cue.
Crazy.
That's wild.
So I think this is probably, as she was saying in that interview, this is the most memed scene. I've seen a version of this where it's Uno cards. I've seen a version of this where it's Pokemon cards.
Charizard.
But of course, you lose. That doesn't work when it's Pokemon cards, because the whole joke is that they all look exactly the same.
Exactly.
They've put the energy into it, right? Where the fonts are different. They are using different kinds of press, and it is there's a difference between bone and white. And if you are a design pervert, like say Josh, you do notice the difference.
Yeah.
But it's insane. This is an insane thing happening right now. These men are diseased.
Am I the only crazy person who kind of wanted business cards after that, though? Like, I
Oh,
I want
absolutely.
them. So I want a silver little holder for them, and I want bone business cards.
I just kept thinking about how, like, next time I'm at the karaoke bar talking about my podcast, I need to pop out my business card holder and hand them something with
It needs
a
a watermark,
distinguished
right? It needs
watermark.
like a cool Voltaire watermark.
Absolutely.
Yeah. But
absolutely.
They even have some holders that like pop them out for you.
Yeah.
Yes, that's what I want.
Like it's a revolver, and I'm like, come on, that is pretty cool.
In a very small but obvious choice here is that when Patrick pops out his card, it sounds like a knife.
Yeah, it's like a sword getting pulled out of its sheath, right? This is an extension of the penis.
Ah!
What? In film?
That's allowed.
There's something about this scene that works in the movie, I think, better than in the book, just because you can see how similar they are.
Yeah.
In the book, he goes into detail saying this is bone and this is off-white, and so you can kind of get a sense of it. But goddamn, just seeing them side by side and being like, it's the same picture.
Let's see Paul Allen's card. And by Paul Allen, I mean Jared Leto.
Yeah.
Oh, right.
He's good in this.
He's so good.
He didn't start the cult yet, you know? He was
Right.
still like a
Right.
guy who could act back then and not just like this face that I hate seeing on my screen.
I mean, the fact that you hate seeing his face makes it very satisfying when he's killed. But before we get there, we should talk about the first kill we see in this movie, which is... Well, it's Reggie Cathy. He kills Reggie Cathy.
Just on the street
and
there.
stomps his dog to death.
Yeah. There have been other kills so far, but we don't see them.
Right.
Or at least other things that we could interpret as kills. Like there's this sort of Little Shop of Horrors scene from the original Little Shop of Horrors where he walks up to this woman on a corner. They have this brief conversation. Then we see him yelling at the dry cleaners because they have to get all of the cran apple stains out of his sheets, which he can only get in Santa Fe.
He yells at the dry cleaning lady who only speaks Chinese, tells her that he's going to kill her.
Which she definitely understands. Like she knows enough English to know what I'm going to kill you is.
Yeah, well, and in the book, this particular murder, this of Reggie Cathy's character, right? He doesn't actually kill him. He comes back later in the book because he blinds him.
Pops his eyes out with a knife.
He pops his eyes out. And this is the point where we start getting into what I think Ellis is particularly good at, which is making a nasty ass scene. Like he is able to viscerally describe gore in a way that I think is exemplary. It made me very queasy and deeply, deeply uncomfortable. Yeah. Also, in the book, it should be said, the amount of times that Patrick Bateman says the N-word.
It turns out he's racist, folks.
All over the place.
Canceled.
And in a way that, like, the movie hints at that racism, specifically like in this scene, but never goes into the extremes that Ellis portrays in the novel.
Which is also just true of the violence more generally, right?
Yes.
At the end of the day, this is an R-rated movie.
Yeah.
It can't do the stuff that you could do if you were choosing to release an unrated film.
But also, like, I don't think they were interested in it. This movie did initially get an NC-17 rating and had to cut down, but it was just from the threesome scene. So they just cut down the threesome scene. He says, get a good look at her ass instead of get a good look at her asshole.
At her asshole, yeah.
And that gets them the R rating. I think that Mary Harron was just less interested in the violence itself and was more interested in just conveying that it happens and keeping the sort of dark comedy tone instead of going into like Stuart Gordon, Sam Raimi territory and just ripping people apart.
I want to portray something here, which is the contrast between the violence of the film and the violence of the book. I've got two things here. I've got a clip from the movie. We've all heard this clip, so we have to play it. Yeah. And then I've got an excerpt from the book of the exact same scene.
You like Huey Lewis in the news?
Okay.
Their early work was a little too new wave for my taste. But when Sports came out in '83, I think they really came into their own, commercially and artistically.
The whole album has a clear, crisp sound and a new sheen of consummate professionalism that really gives the songs a big boost.
Paul is wasted, by the way, sitting on a couch.
And presumably drugged.
Yeah, because there's newspapers all underneath him.
He's been compared to Elvis Costello, but I think Huey has a far more bitter, cynical sense of humor.
Hey, Albert,
Yes, Alan?
why are there copies of the style section all over the place? Do you have a dog? A little chow or something?
No, Alan.
Is that a raincoat?
Yes, it is. In '87, Huey released this, 4, their most accomplished album. I think their undisputed masterpiece is Hip to Be Square. A song so catchy, most people probably don't listen to the
way he
lyrics,
moves his
but
body
they should,
here is
so
because
incredible.
It's not just about the pleasures of conformity and the importance of trends. It's also a personal statement about the band itself.
He grabs an axe.
Hey, Paul! Ah!
what we see is the splatter of blood across his face. We don't see we don't see prosthetic work going into ripping his face open or anything like that.
And so now I've got an excerpt from the book. And again, I'm going to do another fucking content warning here. You can skip over this if you want. This is the description of the murder as it appears in the book.
JP, do you want to do this one?
Ooh, would love to. The axe hits him mid-sentence, straight in the face, its thick blade chopping sideways into his open mouth, shutting him up. Paul's eyes look up at me, then involuntarily roll back into his head, then back at me, and suddenly his hands are trying to grab at the handle. But the shock of the blow has sapped his strength. There's no blood at first, no sound either except for the newspapers under Paul's kicking feet. Rustling, tearing. Blood starts to slowly pour out of the sides of his mouth shortly after the first chop. And when I pull the axe out, almost yanking Owen out of the chair by his head, and strike him again in the face, splitting it open, his arms flailing at nothing, blood sprays out in twin brownish geysers, staining my raincoat. This is accompanied by a horrible momentary hissing noise actually coming from the wounds in Paul's skull, places where bone and flesh no longer connect, and this is followed by a rude farting noise caused by a section of his brain, which, due to pressure, forces itself out, pink and glistening, through the wounds in his face. He falls to the floor in agony, his face just gray and bloody, except for one of his eyes, which is blinking uncontrollably. His mouth is a twisted red-pink jumble of teeth and meat and jawbone. His tongue hangs out of an open gash on the side of his cheek, connected only by what looks like a thick purple string. I scream at him only once. Fucking stupid bastard, fucking bastard. I stand there waiting, staring up at the crack above the Anika that the superintendent hasn't fixed yet. It takes Paul 5 minutes to finally die, another 30 to stop bleeding.
I think what's so viscerally effective about this, and I think the insight that Ellis has into all of the violence in this book, is that the victims of the violence, you can track their thought process as it's happening. Yeah. And that to me is where the horror happens. I think there's a point where he describes it that one of his victims is screaming at the violence of their reality. And that really struck me, because you can describe somebody being pounded to death with baseball bats and it doesn't mean anything, right? Yeah. It doesn't affect you until you talk about what's going on in their eyes and the actual experience of having to live through a nightmare like that.
And all of it being described so clinically and detachedly, right? Because he is he considers himself, even though he is an unreliable narrator, he considers himself sort of a neutral observer.
Yeah, so one thing about the way he describes violence and why I find it so effective actually comes from me reading The Shards, where he's constantly talking about, because in The Shards, he just is Bret Easton Ellis, but as a character. So it's sort of like his name is Bret Easton Ellis in that book. It's fiction, but it kind of discloses, I think, a lot of things about his real life. One of which is that he's constantly trying to write more like Joan Didion, and he's just really obsessed with her prose and the way she writes. And Joan Didion has this very forensic quality to her writing. She's sort of this giant eyeball with a lot of authority that's sort of describing things from a cool, detached distance, but at the same time, there's something severe about it. And when I read passages like this, I see the student of Didion coming out in him.
It's worth noting in this part that Bateman is killing Paul Owen, or Paul Allen, depending on which version you're watching, because of two reasons. One, Paul has that great business card. He has the best card in the bunch. Everyone loves his card more than they love Bateman's card. But also, Paul Allen is the first person, at least in the movie, to misidentify Patrick Bateman. He calls him by this other name entirely, and never at any point corrects himself or gets corrected by anyone. He just simply thinks that Bateman is this other guy who I don't think we actually see on screen, ever. He's just another guy that we know about who's in that orbit, who looks the same, acts the same, wears the same clothes, and does the exact same job in mergers and acquisitions that Bateman does. They are two completely interchangeable men.
Well, there's also the matter of the Fisher account, which is...
Well, of course, the Fisher accounts.
You know, that's very important. The question that you had raised a little earlier, JP, of like, which one is better? I've come away from all of this, from having experienced both of them back to back, with my personal opinion, it's not that one is better than the other for me. It's just that they're different. Yeah. They're fundamentally different pieces of media. The movie is not trying to be the book. It is taking a lot of the text of the book and transforming it into what for me is a fundamentally different story that nevertheless shares a lot of language and characteristics with the source text.
Yeah, I feel the exact same way. Like, I like them in different ways. And I like one thing I really appreciate about the movie is that it's so much easier for a movie to just create commonly understood iconography, to just like rubber stamp new, like how many men have you seen dressed up as Patrick Bateman for Halloween? Like that's something you get out of a movie. Like they get to put on the little raincoat and the headphones and they are good to go.
And you get your prop, you get the axe.
Yeah. Put a little blood on your face, do a little makeup work, slick back your hair.
Yeah, like having that visual vocabulary for everything. I really appreciate that obviously you're not going to get that out of the book.
Yeah.
Right.
And worth noting too that there also has been a Broadway and West End musical based on American Psycho.
Are you not familiar with the musical?
I'm so sorry.
And we are not talking about it. JP, of course, is unfamiliar with it, as you can just hear from this reaction.
I'm delighted.
Like, I think personally it fails to live up to the kind of standard that's set by both the movie and the book.
Because you want something that's similarly transformative using the tools of musical theater,
you want
basically.
it to feel like it's a unique piece on its own. And I think like it more than anything just sort of feels like it sits between the movie and the book.
I see.
Yes, that is exactly right. JP, just so you know, the book writer for that is the guy who created Riverdale.
Oh my God.
And the music is by Duncan Sheik, who is the composer of Spring Awakening.
We'll send you a link to the American and British cast recordings, and you can compare them.
I mean, I can't wait for that. I'm trying to imagine what like a maximally effective version of that would look like. What stage.
Rupert Gould did with it at the Almeida, which was then, it was back up at the Almeida again pretty recently.
Like, I think right now. Yeah.
But what he did was he basically just went super austere with it and was just like, the whole thing's going to be black and white and red.
It's white space that's, just going to get splattered with blood all over.
Yeah, they also sing 80s songs too. They do Everybody Wants to Rule the World in the
and
American
the 80s
version.
songs
It's not in the original one.
They don't fit with Duncan Sheik's songs at all.
I mean, I do love just like an iteration of any kind, like even if it's bad. Like I love just all the interpretations of Cats. Like I don't even like any single version of Cats. I just like.
Have you seen Jellicle Ball yet?
I am dying to see the Jellicle Ball. I need to see it.
My spouse has very famously not liked Cats for their entire life, and they went to the Jellicle Ball and they said they cried 15 times in the first
I've heard the
act.
same. I've heard it's a magical place.
That's usually what you do, AJ.
I
You
know!
usually cry
They
15
figured
times.
it out. They've solved Cats.
I
Because Tom
wanna-
Hooper sure didn't.
I want to cry at the American Psycho Ball. Like, I think that would be.
Yeah, come on.
There was a point where I had this jokey Twitter account called Broadway for Pete. It was when all the For Pete accounts existed during the 2020 primary. And
for Pete
it was like,
Buttigieg,
because it was
yes.
like, Mayor Pete. Yeah, like Ohio for Pete, or students for Pete, or moms for Pete, or...
Listen, you gotta have high hopes.
Yeah, so after he dropped out, Mike Bloomberg was still in the race for like 2 days. So I changed my account from Broadway to Pete to Broadway for Bloomberg. And my original profile picture was Mayor Pete's face on Lin-Manuel Miranda as Hamilton. That used to be the lock screen for my phone until like maybe 2 years ago.
Okay. Go ahead.
No, you go ahead, please.
JP just needed a moment.
Wait, I want to know your thoughts on that, JP.
Can I cook for a second? Can I
Yes,
just say, Lin-Manuel Miranda's version of American Psycho on Broadway would be like, and he is Patrick Bateman in the way that same way that he was
starring
Hamilton.
him. Okay.
Yes.
Okay.
And there's rap.
Yeah.
That would be so fierce.
But
to
like
me.
specifically 80s rap, I think it would have to be very like
slow
and like high school educational kind of stuff, like a little bit of what he kind of.
My name is Patrick, and I'm here to say I butcher women every day, like that.
In a nasty way. Yes.
Yeah.
I'm down. I'm signed up. I don't know.
So I changed that avatar then because I had to become Broadway for Bloomberg, right? So
of course,
our friend Ben Ferber made this amazing piece of art where they took the American Psycho musical logo, which doesn't have a head on it. It's just kind of the suit of Patrick Bateman, but they stuck Michael Bloomberg's head on top of it and changed the text to American Mike-O. Which is unfortunately rewired. Thanks to Ben, it's forever rewired my reaction to the title of American Psycho. I always just see American Myco hovering over it.
It's part of the American trilogy. It's American Psycho, American Myco, and American Canto. Those are they make up the Golden Trilogy.
If some account called American Myco quoted me on anything, I would just delete whatever post I had made. That is the meanest account.
I would throw my phone into the sea.
I want no war with that person.
Well, look, you got me feeling like a real American Myco right now, which means that it's probably time for a break. I don't know how those two thoughts connect. They just do. We'll see you again in a moment.
Greetings, prospective clients. Salve here, Vice President in charge of mergers and acquisitions at Salve, the only New York-based brokerage firm that's just a bunch of regular guys. Listeners, has this ever happened to you? You're trying to acquire a smaller business, but your broker is so zooted out on the snot sticklers that he vomits all over your patent leather shoes. Well, your dogs will be safe with us, because at Salve, the only nose candy we partake in is the potent whiff of a job well done. We do not drink, we do not smoke, and any and all misogyny is met with a stiff reprimand and a firm shaking of the head.
We respect women.
If you take on the services of Salve, you will never see us at the club. Because after work, it's straight home to our families in Weehawken. That's right, we all live in the same town and in the same house. And that house, well, that's a sober house, friend.
One house is all we need. Oh, yeah.
So hire Salve today and see just how much money we can salve you on the back end. And see, that's the sort of non-crass, lighthearted wordplay you can expect from the good people at Salve. We'll never ask you to chuckle uncomfortably at an off-color joke or a fact about a serial killer. In fact, we'll only ask one thing of you. Merge with us. Oh, you thought mergers and acquisitions was just a title. Oh no. We at Salve seek to create the ultimate business, and if businesses are made up of people, it stands to reason that those people must merge as well. We think you will like Weehawken. It has several restaurants and a growing downtown, complete with a laser tag arena. Do you like laser tag? That's all right, it's not for everyone, but we also have skee ball. And how could you hate skee ball? Does it remind you of your childhood? That must have been hard, being left in the local laser tag arena while your parents fought in the car. You know where you'll never have to think about that again? When you become the connecting tissue between our fourth forearm and the upper arm, more colloquially known as the elbow. I mean, if you were our elbow, that skee ball tourney would be in the pocket for sure. So, become our elbow. Become our elbow. So sign up for Salve today and use the discount code ELBOWMEAT to get 30% off the time it will take to absorb you into our flesh. Salve, your key to financial salvation.
Salve.
Well, this Patrick Bateman guy, he's out of control. He's killing people. That's not good.
I think he's a psycho killer.
Oh my God. Do you think there's somebody who could... What could somebody stop him, perhaps? What if there was a detective? What if Willem Dafoe came in?
Yeah, what if
Do you know
Jesus
how
himself?
good at acting you have to be to out crazy Willem Dafoe in a scene?
Baby. So basically, there's a PI who has been hired by Paul Allen / Owen's people to investigate his disappearance. And in the book, this is actually just kind of something that sort of happens on the side. In the movie, this is one of the big mechanical things that drive the plot. There will be multiple meetings between Patrick Bateman and Willem Dafoe. And I got a clip here of their first interaction, and you can hear Patrick Bateman is on edge in a way that we just have not seen up until this point.
Your address? American Gardens Building, West 81st Street.
Nice. Very nice.
Thanks.
What can you tell me about Paul Allen?
I'm at a loss. He was part of that whole Yale thing.
Yale thing?
Yeah, Yale thing.
What do you mean, Yale thing?
Well, I think for one that he was Probably a closet homosexual who did a lot of cocaine.
The Yale
That Yale
thing.
What kind of man was he? Besides the information you've just given.
I hope I'm not being cross-examined here.
You feel like that?
No, not really.
Where did Paul hang out?
Hang out?
Yeah, you know, hang out.
Let me think. The Newport, Harry's, Fluties, Indochine, Nell's, the Cornell Club, the New York Yacht Club.
He had a yacht?
No, he just hung out there.
And where did he go to school?
Don't you know this?
I just wanted to know if you know.
Before Yale, if I remember correctly, St. Paul's. Listen, I just want to help.
I understand.
Do you have any witnesses or fingerprints?
Well, there's a message on his answering machine that says he went to London.
Well, maybe he did, huh?
His girlfriend doesn't think so.
But has anyone seen him in London?
Actually, yes.
Hmm.
But I've had a hard time getting actual verification.
Yeah, this is interesting. Harron took this idea from the interrogation in Crime and Punishment, right? There's a point where the interrogator just basically knows how everything was committed and he just lays it out. And he's like, do you think that's how it happened? You know,
kind of like Columbo.
Yeah, yeah. And
just one more thing, Mr. Bateman. Just one more thing.
And of course, this is something you could have a lot of fun with as an actor, playing the back and forth if you have a lot of rehearsal time to really find the proper beats. And what she did with Willem Dafoe instead was say, okay, this take, you're going to do it as a guy who's not sure if Bateman has something to do with it. Next take, you're going to do it as a guy who knows Bateman has nothing to do with it. And then third take, you're going to do it as the guy, you're going to do as Columbo. You're going to know who your man is, and you're just going to needle him. And so this interaction is created in the edit.
Cool.
Where she's taking from the
Really
three
cool.
different versions of Willem Dafoe here.
Which is exactly what Patrick's going through in this moment, right? In the book, especially when he says he's got the Yale thing, and then Kimball goes, the Yale thing. And in the book, it's like, fuck, I don't know what I mean, the Yale thing. He's a homosexual and he does cocaine.
Yeah, that is the Yale thing.
It is, that is in fact.
I think it's also fun, specifically having Willem Dafoe here, because he has so many fucking lines on his face. That is a defining even when he was young, he just has a lined face.
And when he smiles, he's got those fucking teeth.
Those teeth. But especially the lines, those signs of age are like the one real thing that Bateman fears.
Yeah.
You hear it in the monologue up top about like it, and this is reflected in the book. His absolute fear of starting to age or appear to be aging, I guess.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I think that there's something too about like Willem Dafoe as an actor, even when he is being sincere, there's just like a low level of menace. I think this is perfect casting for Kimball because in the book, Kimball's kind of a non-entity. Like he does appear every once in a while, but he just seems like, a nice guy. Like, he's just a cop who's a PI who's trying to do his job or whatever. And in this one, you're just like, I think that Willem Dafoe in one of the takes is going to like reach over and just pull his whole face off. And then in the next take, he's like, yeah, but I'll have a coffee or I'll have an Evian or whatever. And you're like immediately put at ease. But I didn't know that about the cutting in between takes, Brian. And that explains so much why this scene makes me so uneasy every time I watch it.
Yeah, you just never know who this guy is. He like comes out of a different universe.
In the book, I kind of wish that there was more of him because I remember like, oh my God, a detective is showing up and kind of freaking out about that. And then pretty quickly while reading it, I was like, oh, I'm not afraid of this person. We have nothing to fear.
Yeah, that's a good point. It's like the threat level is not perceptible in the book. And Patrick is able to, even though he does have that momentary freak out, he's able to get things under control again very quickly. Yeah. Whereas in the movie, it's very clear that the detective is a step ahead of him.
Yeah. And I think in the book, Kimball doesn't even show up until like more than halfway through. Like there's so many more killings that happen along the way that we only glimpse in this movie in the notebook at the very, very end.
Right.
Yeah. But, I think establishing him early makes the whole film more structured and more plot-oriented.
There are a lot of just implied killings. We find a body later. We find blood later. We see him walk up to somebody and it cuts away,
There's a moment where he goes on a date with somebody and then there's a cut to him in the office the next day and he's got a lock of blonde hair that he's just like putting between his fingers. And again, to the point of just this is a different thing. What this movie is doing is it is building up to the big reveal. Whereas the book is just bombarding you with obscene amounts of violence at all times. And the net effect is just fundamentally different.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. It numbs you out. It's sort of, I feel like the movie is your first hit of cocaine, and then the book is binging cocaine, right? And I think that's intentional, right? I think Ellis's whole thing is just like, you think that you want the glamour of that life, and you think that you want to be titillated by this hyperviolence, but at a certain point, it's going to mean nothing to you in the way that it means nothing to Patrick Bateman.
I haven't read any other Bret Easton Ellis, but JP, are his other books as gratuitous in their use of violence?
You know, like the Shards, I would describe as like you see a lot of the similar like viscera, you know, but at the same time, the Shards was written more like it was already an HBO show. And I think that's because he released it originally on his podcast. So it's got this like it kind of has to hook you from like episode to episode, and it's way plottier. It's way more like not whodunit exactly, but you want to know who the killer is basically. So there's more of a mystery there. And so having read the Shards first before I read American Psycho, I was really struggling through American Psycho at first because I was like, when does it become the Shards? Like I'm not super like super different experience. And it makes sense that the Shards is being translated into, in fact, an HBO show. I think that Luca Guadagnino was supposed to do it. I think that he either dropped out or I don't know what happened. I think someone else might be doing it now. But that was like way plottier.
Yeah, well, he learned all that plotting by making the canyons.
Yes, that's true.
Bring it back.
It's a very eventful movie. So much happens. So much.
I'm imagining like a movie poster that just says eventful on it. Like, you know, those like
that's the one
waves eventful.
Well, look, we should move on to an event. There's an event that happens in this film. Where Patrick picks up a young woman in the meatpacking district, gets her into his limousine, dials an escort service to get another, assigns them names, and then takes them back to his apartment and proceeds to, well, monologue at them.
I don't want you to get drunk, but that's a very fine Chardonnay you're not drinking. Do you like Phil Collins? I'm a big Genesis fan. Ever since the release of their 1980 album, Duke. Before that, I really didn't understand any of their work. It was too artsy, too intellectual. It was on Duke where Phil Collins' presence became more apparent. I think Invisible Touch is the group's undisputed masterpiece.
He beckons them into the bedroom.
It's an epic meditation on intangibility. At the same time, it deepens and enriches the meaning of the preceding 3 albums. Kirsty, take off the robe.
So she takes the robe off and she's wearing this hideous lingerie.
Brilliant ensemble playing of Banks, Collins, and Rutherford. You can practically hear every nuance of every instrument. Sabrina, remove your dress. In terms of lyrical craftsmanship, sheer songwriting, this album hits a new peak of professionalism. Sabrina, why don't you dance a little?
She starts doing the stupidest, worst dance you've ever seen.
In this song, Phil Collins addresses the problems of abusive political authority. In Too Deep is the most moving pop song of the 1980s about monogamy and commitment. The song is extremely uplifting. Their lyrics are as positive and affirmative as anything I've heard in rock. Christy, get down on your knees so Sabrina can see your ass. Phil Collins' solo career seems to be more commercial and therefore more satisfying in a narrower way. Especially songs like In the Air Tonight and Against All Odds. Sabrina, don't just stare at it, eat it.
So I don't know how this feels in the book because I'm the one person here who didn't read the book.
Yeah.
But in the movie, whenever he's going on these long diatribes about a musician or whatever, it sounds to me like he has read something in an article somewhere, in a magazine, in a newspaper, and he's just memorized that. 'Cause he's like, well, I like this song. This must be why I like it. And if I repeat that to people, they'll understand why I like it so much.
What's your take on the music reviews? Because they are a decent chunk of the book, JP.
Yeah, from what I recall, he does get certain things wrong.
Yes.
Like he just misstates some things entirely, which does kind of back up this idea that he read it somewhere or like heard it somewhere, and he's just like collaging other people's opinions into his own. My favorite use of this, though, like there's the music review voice, and I think it's so funny, but he does this once elsewhere in the book, kind of where Patrick Bateman is having a conversation with one of his colleagues, and suddenly the colleague becomes a travel brochure. Do you guys remember this? Where like the colleague just starts talking about those traveling to the Caribbean, well, delight awaits. And he just starts talking about like why you should go to the Caribbean during like this month and what you should eat and what you should see. And he does it all in this like super like automatic voice that you would expect out of an ad.
That was around the same time that like another thing in the book is he watches this morning show, the Patty Winters show.
Yeah.
And in early descriptions, it sounds like any fucking like daytime talk show. Sometimes the topics are a bit more titillating and provocative. Sometimes they're very boring. But then like it gets to the point where he's like, today on the Patty Winters show, she interviewed a Cheerio for an hour who is seated in a very small chair.
Yeah, and that's where it gets like the most absurd. And then they start getting hyper violent and like so weird.
The show that he's watching gets violent. Like the talk show,
the daytime talk show. Yeah,
it gets more and more unhinged as it goes along. And I understand why they cut it for the movie, but I do kind of miss it. I think that would have been a fun thing.
I wish I could have seen some Patty Winters show as like they could have done it sort of like in RoboCop, where like they have it as interstitial stuff.
I'd buy that for $1.
Yeah.
I mean, they do something interesting with his TV as just sort of a shorthand for him, where he's just obsessed with watching horror movies and porno. So we have this part where he's doing crunches while watching the Texas Chainsaw Massacre at like 6 a.m. before work.
Yeah, and he's got to return those tapes, Brian.
And then later on, of course, he's going to have a chainsaw and he's going to be killing someone. And we're going to be hearing those identical screams to the ones that we heard on screen while he was doing his crunches.
And I've got a quote here again from the book that I wanted to read, which is when he's talking about the Genesis back catalog. Again, in the book, rather than it being incorporated and woven throughout, it's just chunks of him talking about an album.
Yeah.
And in the Genesis chunk, he says, Hugh Padgham produced next an even less conceptual effort, simply titled Genesis, Atlantic, 1983. And though it's a fine album, a lot of it now seems too derivative for my tastes. That's all sounds like misunderstanding. Taking it too hard reminds me of throwing it all away. It also seems less jazzy than its predecessors and more of an 80s pop album, more rock and roll. Padgham does a brilliant job of producing, but the material is weaker than usual and you can sense the strain. It opens with the autobiographical Mama. That's both strange and touching, though I couldn't tell if the singer was talking about his actual mother or to a girl he likes to call Mama. That's all is a lover's lament about being ignored and beaten down by an unreceptive partner. Despite the despairing tone, it's got a bright sing-along melody that makes the song less depressing than it probably needed to be. That's All is the best tune on the album, but Phil's voice is strongest on House by the Sea, whose lyrics are, however, too stream of consciousness to make much sense. It might be about growing up and accepting adulthood, but it's unclear. At any rate, its second instrumental part puts the song more in focus for me, and Mike Banks gets to show off his virtuosic guitar skills, while Tom Rutherford washes the tracks over with dreamy synthesizers. And when Phil repeats the song's third verse at the end, it can give you chills. So, couple notes here, as a Genesis fan, which I am.
I was waiting for this.
Mama is about a young man who is obsessed with a prostitute who he sees regularly, and it's very fucking clear from the lyrics. The song is not called House by the Sea, it's called Home by the Sea, and it's about a guy who is walking around a haunted house, and there are a bunch of ghosts who are trying to tell him their life story. Again,
but I like,
and the names of the other members of Genesis are Tony Banks and Mike Rutherford, not the other way around.
Mike Banks and Tom Rutherford.
I guess my question, Josh, is do you think that this was an intentional choice
Absolutely.
to have Bateman get some stuff wrong?
Absolutely, because he says Tom Rutherford and Mike Banks.
Yeah.
Their names are Tony Banks and Mike Rutherford. Anybody who knows Genesis knows this. And so it's contributing to this idea that, like, the one thing that Bateman supposedly has as like an aesthetic or an appreciation, which is music, he doesn't fucking know anything.
Yeah.
It's all picked up from stuff that he has heard or read elsewhere.
I love too that he's like, oh, I hate hearing, like, I like this song, but also it's a little ambiguous, so I don't know.
Yeah.
There's a point against it, right? And he's also like, this one's too stream of consciousness. And for Bret Easton Ellis to put that into his book like that and get away with it, like, that makes me... It makes me jealous. It makes me hate him. And then I just remember that he wrote The Canyons, and it's okay.
It all smooths
All
over.
sins are forgiven.
Absolutely.
And he also he predicted so much of like the right wing media reaction sphere.
Yeah.
Right. It's just like this is too ambiguous and it's a point against it. That's a CinemaSins ding.
Well,
for sure. Right.
I don't think it's necessarily prediction so much as it is the loop, right? This is about the Reagan era, written in the late 80s, and we're just now back in the long 80s.
Yeah. Well, I do have a quote here from a Guardian interview that they did with Phil Collins, where they got like the readers to write in to like ask him questions. And this question comes from Jackman87.
Okay.
Thank you, Jackman87.
Well, you know what he's doing with his spare time.
That's what I'm saying. At least 87 times.
At least it's not 88, I guess.
He jacked my man 87 times. Is this anything?
It can be.
All right.
How did you feel about your music being referenced heavily in American Psycho? And Phil Collins responded, flattered. I'm easily flattered. I went to see the musical. First of all, I was very surprised they made one. It was okay.
This is the greatest interview of all time.
If I was honest, if my music is being held as representative of an era, then that's more than I thought would happen to me when I was 13 or 14.
Aw, that's
I
kinda
thought
nice.
the movie of American Psycho was quite funny. I don't know if it was meant to be.
It was.
I don't think him being a psychopath and liking my music is linked. My music was just omnipresent in that era.
Yeah, I think he's right. He's absolutely right. It's about the ubiquity of the thing.
No, it all feels very connected to the Les Mis of it all, too. It's just like none of these cultural products are reaching him in a meaningful way. All he can do is just sort of like parrot talking points about them and wrong ones at that. It's very, it's upsetting. It's disturbing. It makes me wonder, like, all the fashion stuff in it that, like, I like clothes. I don't know a lot about fashion. And everyone in the book seems to like talk to him as if he knows his stuff. They're always coming to him for the rules and stuff like that. But I'm wondering, like, all those descriptions he made of like how to dress and those articles of clothing, I wonder if they're all accurate. I wonder if they're all what else is in there.
There are occasionally a few times where he says something completely fucking insane. Like somebody asks him how you should wear a tie bar, and he says that you should put it at a 45-degree angle from the tie. Which is not how you wear a tie bar.
No. Yeah, I think that what I find most interesting about these like music sections, right, is that in the book they're used as palate cleansers. Like there will be some extraordinary violence that happens, and then it will cut to these music reviews to give yourself a little bit of a break. I think that Ellis is kind of a master of being able to like regulate tone and knowing when to push and when to back off and when to push and when to back off. And I think that in the movie, to take that and then reverse it, right? To have the music be the preamble to the hyperviolence, I think is an incredibly smart adaptation choice that allows them to keep the spirit of those monologues in the movie without completely like stalling out the pace.
I did want to talk also about what is going on in this scene with Christy and Sabrina, because what happens from here on out is him having sex with both of them,
and that's not their names. Those are the names he gives them.
He gave them those names. What I think is so cool about the direction here is the way that it subverts the male gaze. This is the least sexy pornographic scene you have ever seen, and I kind of wish, obviously you can't show it, but I feel like part of me wants to be able to see more that is explicitly pornographic and subvert it in a meaningful way. You know what I mean?
Although I think there's something very interesting to the fact that, like, we see almost every inch of Patrick Bateman's body, but he just has no dick, right? Like, we never, ever see his dick and balls. Like, I think that there's something to that. We always see, like, the representation of it, him running nude with a chainsaw in his hands, but not the actual, like, penis itself. That the penis is itself, like, inadequate for him. Like, sex itself is almost just, like, he's pretty much just, like, autophilic.
Yeah.
Right? Whenever he's having sex, he's looking in the mirror and looking at his own muscles and his own sweat, and the women are so completely incidental to everything else that the only real sexual gratification is the violence.
I mean, in fact, like in the book, everyone except Jean, who is kind of like implied to be in love with him, it seems like women are so rarely vocally impressed by him. Like, he has a lot, like, even before the killing starts,
right?
like they kind of feel sorry for him, or they're like, oh, you're weird. Like, there's a lot of like sex workers in the apartment. He's like, look at this place, pretty nice, right? This is my job. And he starts explaining what he does for a living, and they're just like, all right, I don't care, man. Like,
right.
Yeah. And they keep saying, like, because he works for Pierce and Pierce, and they're like, is that a shoe store?
Right.
And he's like, no. And then finally, like, once the killing, like, is really rubbed off and, like, the sheen of it is gone, they're just like, is P&P, what's that? And he's like, it's a shoe store. Like, he doesn't even care about his job by the end of this.
There's also something to this threesome element where he has found a streetwalker and also hired, like, a high price escort through a phone service. Right. So he's combining these two sort of class levels together in his sick little game. And he doesn't kill these women this time around.
Well, and this is another thing that is directly pulled from the book, where after they've gotten done having sex, he says, we're not through yet, and pulls out a coat hanger.
Yeah, he has a coat hanger, and he has this little drawer of, like, implements in the movie, at least.
And rather than seeing what happens, there's basically just a cut to them walking out the door, and it's pretty much the same in the book.
Interesting.
And this is one of the few times in the book where Ellis shows restraint. And the thing is, in terms of what makes horror work really well, a lot of times what you can imagine is a whole lot fucking scarier than having it shown to you.
Yeah.
Now, JP, you had a quote that you had wanted to bring into the conversation here from the book, which is something that Tiffany says. Tiffany and Tori.
These are some different sex workers that come in a little bit later in the book.
Tiffany flips through an issue of GQ that's 3 months old, sitting on the black leather couch beneath a strip of faux cowhide paneling, and she's looking confused, like she doesn't understand anything. I'm thinking, pray, you bitch, just pray. And then I have to admit to myself that what a turn on it is, encouraging these girls to debase themselves in front of me for what amounts to pocket change. I also mention, after pouring them another drink, that I went to Harvard. Then I ask, after a pause, ever heard of it? I'm shocked when Tori answers, I had a business acquaintance who said he went there. She shrugs dumbly. A client? I ask, interested. Well, she starts nervously. Let's just say a business acquaintance. Was this a pimp? I ask. Then the weird part happens. Well, she stalls again before continuing. Let's just call him a business acquaintance. She sips from her glass. He said he went to Harvard, but I didn't believe him. She looks over at Tiffany, then back at me. Our mutual silence encourages her to keep talking, and she continues haltingly. He had, like, this monkey, and I would have to watch this monkey in his apartment. She stops, starts, continues in monotone, occasionally gulping. I'd want to watch TV all day, because there was nothing else to do while the guy was out, and while I tried to keep an eye on the monkey. But there was something wrong with this monkey. She stops and takes a breath. The monkey would only watch... Again, she stops, takes in the room, quizzical expression creasing her face, as if she's not sure she should be telling us this story. If we, me and the other bitch, should be privy to this information. And I brace myself for something shocking, something revelatory, a connection. It would only watch, she sighs, then in a sudden rush admits, the Oprah Winfrey Show, and that's all it would watch. The guy had tapes and tapes of it, and he had made all of them for this monkey. Now she looks over at me, imploringly, as if she's losing her mind here, right now, in Owen's apartment and wants me to, what, verify it? With the commercials edited out. One time I tried to turn the channel, turn one of the tapes off. If I wanted to watch a soap instead or something. But she finishes her drink and, rolling her eyes, obviously upset by the story, continues bravely. the monkey would screech at me, and it would only calm down when Oprah was on. She swallows, clears her throat, looks like she's going to cry, but doesn't. And you try to turn the channel, and that damn monkey would try to scratch you. She concludes bitterly and hugs herself, shivering, uselessly trying to warm herself. Silence. Arctic, frigid, utter silence. The light burning over us in the apartment is cold and electric. Standing there, I look at Tori, then at the other girl, Tiffany, who looks queasy. I finally say something, stumbling over my own words. I don't care whether you've led a decent life or not. The last line is just like crazy to me.
There's so many moments like this in the book too, where it's like somebody will say something that is so fucking insane and Patrick will take it in, observe it, and immediately discard it because he doesn't fucking care.
Okay, so I'm confused by this story in particular because I don't know what Ellis's, maybe it's just like a wacky story that he needed to put in there, but I'm trying to think like thematically what he's trying to get at here. Like, is the idea that the way that Patrick watches the Patty Winters show like mirrors the way that this monkey watches the Oprah Winfrey show, which is just another daytime talk show. And that if that is taken away from him, if like these creature comforts are taken away from him, that he lashes out and gets violent and screams. And that the only way to sedate psychopaths like Patrick Bateman is to sedate them with their treats, is to dangle these materialistic things in front of their faces and hope that will save you from the wrath that's just bubbling underneath.
Interesting.
That's my best guess, but honestly, I have no idea.
What's your take?
My take is that this is a Bret Easton Ellis kind of fucking with us and just kind of wasting our time in a way by just being sort of like look at me,
He's trolling,
I'm being a little jokester right now. I'm being a little clever, and it's like this weird reminder, almost intrusion of the author. In a way, to me, it's just sort of like, I'm just fucking with you guys. I don't know. Like, there's this monkey and it only watches Oprah, and like this sex worker like is in the condition where like, oh my god, she's so afraid to bother this monkey, but it can only watch Oprah, and like, I don't care if you had a decent life thing. It's just like so abstract and it's so weird and like bizarre that it does feel to me like Bret Easton Ellis is literally like genuinely doing comedy. Like, he's just like, I just want to make you laugh here.
Yeah, because some horrible shit is about to happen to these two
That's
women.
damn true. I think like there is a piece of this book that I can only describe as an endurance test.
Yes.
Where whether it's really horrifying violence or really boring and inaccurate reviews of music or bullshit like this, it kind of reminds me of my relationship also with Infinite Jest, where I'm just like, fuck you, man. Wait, why did you make me read 30 pages of that? This sucks. I'm going to throw this book away forever, you know?
Well, now you know how to build an IKEA bed, though. So that's good.
I mean, I do think that this is how sadism kind of has to work, right? Because if it's nonstop cruelty, if it's nonstop barrage of just grotesque, like horrible imagery and just attacking the reader all the time, it stops becoming sadistic in a way. Like a real sadist will just like throw in like a breather. It'll pull back. It'll sort of let you think that you're safe in some way, or there'll be those tone mix-ups where you never know what's coming, because if you get adjusted to it, it stops being effective. And I do think we're dealing with a sadist here, and he's just like trying to throw us off.
As the author, you mean?
Yes.
Like he is being sadistic toward his reader. And that actually is really the biggest difference, I think, between the book and the movie is the relationship that the piece has with its audience.
Because the movie's a bit of a crowd pleaser, honestly.
Yeah, absolutely.
It has kind of the feeling of like a Coen Brothers movie where it's doing something odd and it's doing something deep, but it's very friendly to the audience. It wants you to come on this journey, and it wants you to have fun with it as it goes there.
Yeah, even in the next scene, which is Patrick interacting with Lewis, who again is the closeted gay man. So they all meet at yet another fucking restaurant, and Patrick sees Louise's business card. And that puts him over the fucking edge.
This card is fucking crazy too, where everyone else has been going down the road of like the most tasteful ever, the most off-white, the most subtle, the watermark, everything. He comes in and this thing has like golden letters on it.
He is so disgusted by his absolute tastelessness. And as it's portrayed in the movie, it isn't really even coming from a place of being homophobic. It's coming from a place of him hating his disgusting taste.
The card.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
and his clothing too, because he dresses very gauchely as well.
Yeah, because this is Matt Ross, the guy who plays
Gavin Belson from Silicon Valley, baby.
And he looks like he's he's a character from a silent movie from like 1920. Like
he looks like a ventriloquist dummy who's granted life.
Yeah, he's just like this German pre-war ass looking guy. His suit is a different color. His hair is weird. He's very, very pale. And he's obviously just got something about him that's different. And it's not necessarily his sexuality at this point.
It is in the book. It is in the book. It's very clearly and explicitly about his sexuality in the book.
The movie kind of treats that almost like a reveal.
Yes.
And then that just, like the monkey story, Patrick Bateman just doesn't even know what to do with it in the movie version.
So, setting this clip up here, Patrick goes into the bathroom to strangle Luis to death. And so he puts his gloved hands around his neck from behind.
While he's pissing at the urinal.
But Luis thinks that Patrick is picking him up and kisses his hand. And then this happens.
God, Patrick, why here? I've seen you looking at me. I've noticed your hot body. Don't be shy. You can't imagine how long I've wanted this ever since that Christmas party at Arizona 206. You know, the one you were wearing that red striped paisley Armani tie.
And he goes and washes his gloves.
Yes.
I want you too. Patrick. What is it? Where are you going?
I've got to return some videotapes.
That's his sort of repeated refrain. His excuse to get away from anything is like, oh yeah, I got to return some videotapes.
And it should be mentioned that this scene takes place in the Yale Club.
Right.
In the book, when we know what Yale thing is, right?
I've been to the Harvard Club here in New York.
Really?
I did some nude modeling there for a while. Yeah.
Oh.
So I have
Was it Harvard sanctioned nude modeling?
You know, I went to Calvin College. We don't have things like this. There's just like a club for people who went to Harvard and they can just go there here in Manhattan. There's a hotel attached to it. There's like continuing ed classes that go on. So one of the SVA professors that I modeled for was like, hey, you should come up here. And we like modeled in this like conference room for 3 hours. And then I just stole everything I could find. I stole Harvard pens. I stole Harvard stationery. I stole Harvard hard candies that tasted fucking terrible.
They tasted like Harvard.
They tasted like hard bodies.
They were a rectangle. They were just sort of a bluish rectangle that just said Harvard on them.
Brian, that was Viagra? I don't know how to break this news. Those were not candy.
So, look, it made the modeling session a lot more interesting.
I'll say.
Yeah, I guess like when I read it, I just thought of Luis as sort of this pathetic person that was never the object of desire from Patrick Bateman. Like I didn't get that Patrick Bateman ever thought like I am either attracted to this person or I feel even kind of homoerotic with this person. I kind of got like, oh, this is just a sad sack, you know. I think that, and I guess too in the movie, I didn't get that either, but I would be interested to hear if anyone thought that maybe there was something deeper going on.
I'm gonna go for this. I ship them, unfortunately, my most problematic ship. But I think what's going on here is that when Patrick is approached by people that anger him, he murders them, right? Paul Allen has the thing he wants, he murders him. He takes out a lot of his rage on sex workers, and obviously in the book, he's killing minorities left and right.
And a child.
And a child at the zoo for no reason. And I think that he doesn't do that with Louise, right? And Patrick claims to be incredibly homophobic, and he is, because I think in my interpretation there's a lot of self-hatred here, and it's sort of like Ellis putting himself into the shoes of Bateman, and that's sort of his way in there. But I think that the reason he can't close his fingers is because his body is betraying him in that moment. And even in the book there's a whole scene where Luis breaks down in a department store and like gets on his knees and screams and cries for Patrick not to leave him, right? And Patrick in that moment does not kick him him off. He doesn't like pull out his knife or like try and stab him or anything like that. He picks him up and physically takes him out of the store. Like he comforts him as much as Bateman can.
And I think that's a good point, that in the world of the book, Patrick will sometimes just pull out a knife and randomly stab somebody fully out in public or whatever, which is one of the many things, obviously, that lets us know that this is a fairly unreliable narration.
Yeah.
But the fact that in this accounting, he doesn't even frame up the idea of killing him, whether it is fantasy or otherwise, that is noteworthy. Mm-hmm. Now, maybe that is just coming from a place of this man is too pathetic to kill. I'm not really sure. I'm not strongly sort of one way or the other, but I do think that it's interesting how he is so obsessed with this man is not just pathetic. He's pathetic because he is a faggot, in the words of Bateman that he uses very frequently. There's something different about that than the way that he finds other people to be pathetic. And I do think that it is grounded in some self-loathing. I do.
Yeah. I mean, I think also when he does kill a gay man and his dog, you see a lot of like, he has a lot of like what I can only describe as like in community knowledge of like the way he describes this person. Like it does feel like gay violence in a way, like toxic mask, like DL guy, like killing Queenie gay man.
It's very like no femmes, no fatties, right?
Yeah, I think that on the attraction into things, and I hate to keep referencing the shards because I know that I think I'm the only one who read it, but like I have seen / read Bret Easton Ellis describe like closeted desire, because like the character there is closeted as well. And so like the way he looks at men and the way that he sees attractive men and describes them, I'm just like, this is unspeakably horny. You know what I mean? Like it's just so even when he like hates them, and even when he's claiming to like not be into them. And so just having that in the back of my brain, I guess when I read Patrick Bateman or / Bret's description of Luis, I'm just like, oh, okay, this is a non-sexual entity to you. But then again, like the non-sexual aspect of the whole thing, that also might just be a reaction on his end, like sort of a desexing kind of like, I don't want to think about this person that way. And so let me just like dismiss him.
And Luis describes Patrick as having a hard body, right? Yeah. And how does Patrick Bateman describe every woman in this book is a hard the guise of a hard body.
So
right?
he's kind of being made into the woman in this situation. There's also, I think, an element of the fear around AIDS at this time, right? If Patrick kills this guy in a bloody way, he's going to get that blood on him. And does that mean that he's going to get AIDS? We see a little bit.
There's more stuff about AIDS in the book too.
Yeah, well, they go to what's essentially a gay club, although there are a lot of other straight people around, and talk about it a fair bit in one section, like 2 scenes after this in the movie too.
Where they claim you can get dyslexia, I guess, from it. As
well.
I
think in part the fear of gay people, as I see it, and certainly just from the perspective of the movie, is that it allows a man to have some degree of power over him, and he doesn't want that to happen at all.
Yeah, I mean, also like I think Luis could very much represent if Patrick Bateman did have attraction to men, like Luis could be the thing he was afraid of becoming. In a way. Like he might see that as an instance of himself, like, oh my god, this like weak, sad, wretched, pathetic thing that's just so obsessed with me, you know, like, and he is
with a gilded business card.
Well, particularly in the eyes of his peers, right? Because so much of it is about him being able to fit into the performance of masculinity that this world requires.
Yeah, and he's also got the relationship going with Luis's fiance as well.
Courtney.
Which is,
Courtney.
Yeah.
She took her break.
Which, thank you, AJ. Which I should say in the movie, the last time that you see Patrick and Courtney together, it is strongly implied that Courtney is going to end up killing herself.
Oh yeah,
which is not in the book actually. That I think it was another one of those things where it was like, we need to give this character something more meaningful, because she says like, if I don't see you before April, it's been real, or something like that, right?
Yeah, I hope you have a good Easter.
That's what it is. Yeah.
If I don't see you, I hope you have a good Easter. And Bateman's like, okay, and he's like already halfway out down the hallway at that point. And that's a holdover from the book. Like that's the remarkable thing about the movie, is that most of the dialogue is pretty much ripped straight from the book itself.
And another great example of text that has been lifted and sort of remixed is the scene with Patrick having Jean at his apartment. This scene is not at his apartment in the book. This scene is at a restaurant. But in the movie, he takes her back to his apartment. This is his secretary.
Well, he says he's going to get a reservation at a restaurant he can't. He consistently can't get reservations at. So he just lies.
Yeah.
And this is supposed to be the pregame before dinner. Yeah.
In the book, what he does is he just goes to Dorsia and sits in somebody else's reservation until he gets kicked the fuck out.
I think the reason they didn't do it in the movie was because they had already spent all their budget on menus and they couldn't afford a somehow even bigger menu.
Would have been too big.
Well, restaurants are also expensive generally because you have to have a lot of extras in your scene. That's another reason Cronenberg didn't want to have a lot of restaurant scenes.
But in my estimation, this is maybe the scene that anchors the movie, just in terms of the stakes of, there is a real person here.
Yeah.
Who has a real potential future. And she is in real danger.
I'd like to travel and maybe go back to school, but I don't really know. I'm at a point in my life where there seems to be so many possibilities, but I don't know, I'm just so unsure.
So many possible worlds, maybe.
Do you have a boyfriend?
No, not really.
Interesting.
Are you seeing anyone? I mean, seriously?
Maybe. I don't know. Not really. Jean, do you feel fulfilled? I mean, in your life?
I guess I do. For a long time I was too focused on my work, but now I've really begun to think about changing myself, developing and growing.
Growing. I'm glad you said that. Did you know that Ted Bundy's first dog, a collie, was named Lassie? Had you heard this?
Who's Ted Bundy?
Forget it.
Yeah, he likes to quote Ed Gein and Ted Bundy to people, and none of them know who those people are.
Christian Bale has said that he has based his performance of Patrick Bateman on Tom Cruise. And at first I was just like, because, he's got that perfect smile, but he can sometimes have those shark eyes, right? Where there's just like, there's just like nothing happening behind there. And it turns out, yes, that is true.
Yes,
but also in the book, Tom Cruise lives in Patrick Bateman's building. And they take an elevator ride together, and he is so nervous talking to Tom Cruise and fucks it up so royally that, no, this is just a brilliant character choice, right? And you can hear it in the laugh that he does here.
Yeah.
He's trying to do a Tom Cruise laugh. And then the fact that it falls so flat just shows, I think not only just the charisma of the real Tom Cruise, but also just how that persona in a different body just doesn't quite work.
Some great comedy here, too, of him skulking around the apartment looking for his tools.
He's moving so unnaturally throughout this entire thing.
And talking to her while he's half inside of a closet door where his duct tape is. Yeah. And the point where he pulls a humongous nail gun into frame. It's like Tommy Wiseau with the flowers,
And there is something a little bit, you start to get the sense that maybe the nail gun isn't there because he places it down right next to her in the shot, and she doesn't acknowledge it at all. This is the point where I start to be I don't know if any of this is actually happening. I don't trust the movie's narration in the way that I did not trust the books.
I mean, in the movie, I think really drives that home with the drawings and all that, where it's just okay, this could just be an adult man having these fantasies and just putting them somewhere, either mentally, physically. Yeah, I got that sense more in the movie even.
Well, and the cool thing about those drawings is that most of those drawings are the murders from the book that we don't see in the movie.
Right.
So the crucifixion and the rats. Oh boy, the rats. The less
that's a real those who know kind of thing.
Yep. I don't want to talk about it. Nope. I don't want to think about it.
I knew it was coming, and then when I read it, I was like, oh yeah, there was no preparing for that.
Yeah. Read the book, folks, if you want to never be able to see a rat the same way again. But Jean is saved by a call from Evelyn at just the right time, wrong time, whatever. she leaves the apartment and is not, in fact, killed. Unfortunately, some other ladies won't be quite so lucky, because after another brief meeting with Willem Dafoe, this time it's Smith and Walensky.
Well, and I should note for this meeting, too, this is where we get something very strange, because we have Bateman's double. We have the guy that Paul Allen was confusing him for, Marcus Halberstrom. Willem Dafoe is going over the alibis of everyone in his orbit, and he's like, yeah, I heard that Halberstrom may have been with him the night he died, but then I got a verified, confirmed, no, he was at this place, Halberstrom, with you, Mr. Bateman. And so now Bateman also has a perfect alibi that he didn't intend to have, because once again, presumably, someone has mistaken someone else for him.
And the reservation at that restaurant was for Halberstrom as well.
Yeah.
That he made it under the other guy's name. But again, it's one of those situations where the names get confused with each other. The people get confused with each other because they all look goddamn the same.
There's also a point when he's talking to Willem Dafoe, the previous scene, the one in between the two interrogations that we were talking about, where that's where he gets more racist in the movie, where he talks about seeing some very short-lived Broadway musical called Oh Africa, Brave Africa, that he said he and Paul Allen went to just so they would laugh at it.
Right.
And then he talks about how he doesn't like Huey Lewis and the News because Huey sounds too black for him. So this is contradicting, his apparent love for Huey Lewis earlier.
Yeah, that great review of 4 that he gave earlier.
And also contradicting his kind of like scolding at the beginning of like, cool it with the racist and the anti-Semitic remarks.
There's also some really strong hair and makeup work happening here where he looks like he's got maybe some bruising going on. His hair is just a little bit unkempt. You notice that it's off. And so to pick control back up again after getting, grilled by this detective, he picks Christy up again. He goes to Paul's apartment. He brings another friend over, his friend Elizabeth, who he met at the Kentucky Derby. And this is, by the way, Guinevere Turner, who co-wrote the movie.
Co-writer, yeah.
Hey! And I found something in a wiki that is about the character of Elizabeth. It's a screen cap of her, and it says, Elizabeth, shortly before her Eliza death. And I thought that was funny.
Rip to a real one.
We have to have fun.
We do have
we
to have fun.
have to have fun somehow.
But this then sets off like the string of violence that is the climax of this movie. Patrick starts killing Elizabeth under the sheets. Christy makes a run for it. Yep. She is pursued by a fully nude Patrick Bateman wielding a chainsaw.
Yep, he has become nude.
And this scene is so fucking funny. I love everything about the way this scene is shot.
It's so ridiculous.
She opens a closet door. There are women hung up in the closet, like on coat hangers. Right. She runs like down the hallway and is banging on every door for somebody to help her. And
everything that she's doing is terrifying and real and grounded.
Yeah.
But everything that Bateman is doing is so bizarre and over the top.
Cartoony.
And cartoonish. Yeah. It's cartoonish. Yes.
Yeah.
And I don't know how it manages to be both so scary and so funny at the same time, but it does.
And I think what's so remarkable about both the book and the movie is that it treats him as being this very like kind of foppish, like debutante kind of guy, right? This is a very intelligent man who gets a lot of things wrong, but he says it with confidence. So you think that he's smart, right? And you're trapped in his head for so long. But all he can think of to say when he finally murders someone is, fuck you, you fucking bitch. Like he resorts back to this childlike misogyny, right? Yeah. And especially in this one where he drops a chainsaw down a flight of stairs
and nails her
perfectly nails her in the side.
It's like, that's not right. That's not how this works.
And his response to that is just to go,
face, fully covered in blood. And from here, he goes on, he calls the engagement off with his fiance who he hates.
While scribbling Christie's corpse on the restaurant tablecloth with crayons.
I gave you all the clues, Mr. Police.
He holds a cat at gunpoint. The most adorable little kitten you've ever seen.
because you were talking about like the Cheerio and like
Yeah.
the park bench and stuff like that. These things, these like non-sentient things that talk to him in the book. We really only get this one thing in the movie, which is an ATM screen. The display scrolls by and it says, "Feed me a cat."
My
Feed me a
favorite
stray
edition.
cat.
Oh my god.
And this little kitten is right there. And you think he's going to like stuff the cat into the ATM somehow. No, he just pulls out a gun and holds it to the cat's head.
Well, he does try to get it in there. He's like, well, that's too big. Gotta
Maybe
shoot
if I
it.
shoot it, it will help. Yeah.
And he doesn't shoot it. An old lady sees him and he just murders
Shoots
her.
the old lady. And this is where it takes us into a shooting spree. And here again, I wanted to switch back to the book because this is such a destabilizing set of paragraphs.
So basically, this plays out very similarly in the book where he just randomly walks up to an unhoused person and pulls out a gun and shoots him, but there's a cop like right down the street. Like I think it's a saxophonist in the book.
Yes, that's right.
And the cops immediately start chasing him. And this is the first time you're like, oh my God, there's going to be actual consequences because a third party has seen the murder and is chasing after him. And then things just start getting more and more wildly out of control. He gets into a cab. The cab driver is like freaking out because he has a gun on him. And then Patrick just shoots the guy through the head. And this actually does bear consequence a little bit later in the book when that cabbie's brother, I think, who is also driving a taxi cab, like robs Patrick. And it's the only time he sees consequences in the entire book for any of his actions. But as they're going along, they eventually get to a point where several cop cars come out of nowhere and start doing like flips and all the cars start exploding. And it's very clear that this is either we're going to be in action movie lane till the end of the book or absolutely none of this is happening.
And this is the third person section? Is what you're talking about? Okay.
But Patrick surprises him by lunging out before the cop can get to his gun, and he knocks him over onto the sidewalk, where people from the Lotus Blossom are now standing, staring dumbly at the wreckage, no one helping the cop as the two men lie struggling on the sidewalk. The cop wheezing from exertion on top of Patrick, trying to wrestle the magnum from his grasp. But Patrick feels infected, like gasoline is coursing through his veins instead of blood. It gets windier, the temperature drops, it starts raining. But softly they roll into the street. Patrick keeps thinking there should be music. He forces a demonic leer, his heart thumping, and manages quite easily to bring the gun up to the cop's face. Two pairs of hands holding it, but Patrick's finger pulls the trigger. The bullet blowing a crease in the top of the officer's skull, yet failing to kill him. But lowering his aim with the aid of the loosening grip of the officer's fingers, Patrick shoots him in the face. The bullets exit, casting a lingering pinkish mist, while some of the people on the sidewalk scream, do nothing, hide, run back into the restaurant, as the cop car Patrick thought he evaded in the alley careens toward the deli, red lights flashing, screeching to a halt right when Patrick trips over the curb, collapsing onto the sidewalk, at the same time reloading the magnum, hiding behind the corner, the terror he thought had passed engulfing him again, thinking, I have no idea what I've done to increase my chances of getting caught. I shot a saxophonist? A saxophonist? Who's probably a mime too? For that I get this? And in the near distance he can hear other cars coming, lost in the maze of streets. The cops now, right here, don't bother with warnings anymore. They just start shooting and he returns their gunfire from his belly, getting a glimpse of both cops behind the open doors of the squad car, guns flashing like in a movie, and this makes Patrick realize he's involved in an actual gunfight of sorts, that he's trying to dodge bullets, that the dream threatens to break is gone, that he's not aiming carefully, just obliviously returning gunfire, lying there when a stray bullet, 6 in a new round, hits the gas tank of the police car, the headlights dim before it bursts apart, sending a fireball billowing up into the darkness, the bulb of a street lamp above it exploding unexpectedly in a burst of yellow-green sparks, flames washing over the bodies of the policemen, both living and dead, shattering all the windows of Lotus Blossom, Patrick ears ringing.
That is one sentence, by the way.
A gunfight of sorts. I hate to be in a gunfight of sorts.
Yeah. I'm really in a gunfight of
gunfight
sorts, dodging bullets.
Yeah.
It's like, no, it's just a gunfight.
I think it's a gunfight, yeah.
Oh dear, I seem to be in a gunfight of sorts.
I also love it was probably a mime too.
Yeah.
We care about mimes in this country.
This is reflected, I mean, what you just read is exactly what happens in the movie, except that in the movie it's not in front of a restaurant. you end up with this weird sort of distancing. You feel yourself depersonalizing as you read this.
This is a small movie. I mean, really, in the grand sense of things, you're mostly in small rooms with very few characters, and all of a sudden police cars are exploding on screen.
Right.
And that had to take up a significant chunk of the movie's budget just for this one very, very stupid moment.
Yeah. And it feels stupid in the movie,
too. It feels very stupid. It's like what have we been doing this whole time?
And then, of course, it all leads to like Patrick having a breakdown.
Right. He calls his lawyer. He admits everything.
Howard, it's Bateman, Patrick Bateman. You're my lawyer, so I think you should know I've killed a lot of people. Some escort girls in an apartment uptown. Some homeless people, maybe 5 or 10. An NYU girl I met in Central Park. I left her in a parking lot behind some donut shop. I killed Bethany, my old girlfriend, with a nail gun. And some old faggot with a dog. Last week, I killed another girl with a chainsaw. I had to. She almost got away. And there was someone else there. I can't remember. Maybe a model, but she's dead too. And Paul Allen. I killed Paul Allen with an axe in the face. His body is dissolving in a bathtub in Hell's Kitchen. I don't want to leave anything out here. I guess I've killed maybe 20 people. Maybe 40. I have tapes of a lot of it. Some of the girls have seen the tapes. I even, I ate some of their brains. And I tried to cook a little. Tonight, I just had to kill a lot of people. And, I'm not sure I'm gonna get away with it this time.
And I love this performance. I just want to say, Bale having this breakdown throughout the movie, we see him that Patrick is performing something, right? And even the fact that Bale sort of exaggerates his American accent, which we've heard him do in previous movies, not to this exaggerated effect, but the fact that he's able to keep that and then somehow finally like ground it in something, which is his fear of being caught, I think is remarkable. And you know what? Speaking of sweat, he's a sweaty boy in this moment. Oh boy.
This call is a message. It's for his answering machine because it's the middle of the night and he's got helicopters everywhere around his office. He's also killed a doorman in like an identical building and run through and then said hi and signed in to his regular building. And so he is letting everything loose, but not to the lawyer himself at this moment. The lawyer's going to find that message when he comes into work tomorrow.
Right. And from here, Bateman goes back to Paul's apartment and he's expecting to find, you know, the bodies, the blood, everything. But no, there's a showing happening now and everything, all the furniture is gone.
Everything's painted white. You know, if not the classic New York thing of every room being painted a different subtle off-white with one eggshell room, one cream room, which I think would have been better.
Well, this room is bone.
Yeah, exactly. There's no smell. I think in the book there's something about flowers covering up or like a really strong smell of flowers.
And I'm curious, JP, about your read on this scene, because again, it's basically the same in the book where this real estate agent seems to know something.
The movie could have ended in an explosion. It really could have ended with all this violence, and it really could have, like, I don't know. I'm just glad that didn't happen. And the real estate agent sort of like brings us back into this mundanity, into like, she like sets up a trap for him, kind of. She's like,
did you see the listing in the Times?
Yeah, did you see the listing in the Times? And he's like, yeah, I did. And she's like, there is no listing in the Times. And so you have this like authority figure who happens to be a woman sort of like rejecting all this fantasy, right? And sort of like it's a small moment, kind of, but she's like an older woman, she's professional, she has like a certain control over him in a way, and she uses that authority to say like, you're lying, which I think is such a cool way to like bring us back into everything, but also to just like have someone with power of some sort be like, you are not telling the truth, which is sort of what we've been kind of thinking the whole time. And to have a concrete moment like that is just like, chef's kiss, I think.
And now there's two equally bizarre possibilities.
Yeah.
One of which is that everything that happened in there has been scrubbed clean.
Yeah.
And this building is now back on the market by somebody who is selling it. And, the real estate agent maybe is privy to what was going on here.
Like it's a John Wick situation
Exactly.
where there's an entire underground assassin ring that's like covering all this stuff up.
But then the other option is that none of the shit in the apartment happened at all.
Which is the Black Swan option.
Yeah. But the option where he is the killer, where he has been doing all these things, he is insulated by his class status.
Right.
By people who want to sell a luxury apartment, but it's going to be severely devalued if there's a murder in it versus a working class apartment.
Right,
And we see that too with like the victims running out of the apartment, banging on doors. No one's going to answer. No one is going to disturb their own peace. The doorman seeing a bloody sack getting dragged across the lobby and not reacting to it. Everything is built so that someone of this status can continue to do whatever they want, because the alternative would be too destabilizing, either just to individual interests or just the interests of a class to keep its own power in place.
And to the point of the class keeping its own power in place, this takes us right to the ending scene where they are back at a restaurant, the restaurant from the beginning of the movie. Bateman's there with his identical friends saying some bullshit, and he walks up to his lawyer, the lawyer who he left the message for. His lawyer does not recognize him, confuses him for a different man.
A guy named Davis,
and moreover, does not believe that the call was real.
Your joke was amusing, but come on, man. You had one fatal flaw. Bateman is such a dork. Such a boring, spineless lightweight. Now, if you said Bryce or McDermott, otherwise it was amusing. Now, if you'll excuse me, I really must be going.
Wait, stop. I did it, Carnes. I killed him. I'm Patrick Bateman. I chopped Alan's fucking head off. The whole message I left on your machine was true.
Excuse me. I really must be going now.
No, listen. Don't you know who I am? I'm not Davis. I'm Patrick Bateman. We talk on the phone all the time. Don't you recognize me? You're my lawyer. Now, Carnes, listen. Listen very, very carefully. I killed Paul Allen. And I liked it. I can't make myself any clearer.
But that's simply not possible. And I don't find this funny anymore.
It never was supposed to be. Why isn't it possible?
It's just not.
Why not, you stupid bastard?
Because I had dinner with Paul Allen twice in London. Just 10 days ago.
No, you didn't.
This is also cross-cut a little bit with Chloe Sevigny opening up Patrick Bateman's planner and seeing just sort of normal things for a little while, dinner with Paul Allen or whatever, turning the page, seeing a little doodle of murder and death and sexual violence, turning the page again, more murder and death and tits and vag and all of this stuff, and just seeing more and more of these bizarre, violent fantasies. And we start to get this sense at the end that maybe it's true, maybe he hasn't killed anyone, and this is all just him sitting at his desk with his little jack-off fantasies.
Right. I mean, it's to a certain extent, he's begging the lawyer to be like, hold me accountable.
Right. Yeah.
I'm a monster. Do something about this.
Yeah.
And he's like, no, he refuses. Like, he actively refuses, right? And JP, to your point about Patrick Bateman just being this specter, right? Or this entity that travels from thing to thing. Now thinking about that final scene where he's like, I'm Patrick Bateman. And that's the moment where the lawyer's like, oh, so the entity's in you now. It's my client again at last. Okay, we can actually have a conversation about this. no, you didn't kill anyone. I'm covering for you.
Yeah.
Right? Because again, he's just like, it's impossible because I had lunch with him, but he has not been able to recognize the man standing in front of him.
Yeah.
So how the fuck do we know if Paul's alive or not?
Yeah, he could very well have just eaten lunch with somebody and thought that was Paul Allen.
And in the interviews with Ellis, this was his intention with this scene. This is what he was trying to get across. But that's not the only read you can take away from it, whether you're talking about the book or the movie.
Yeah, that was sort of what I took away from it, where I was just like, I mean, how do you even know? Like, we've been sort of given no clue that anyone in this book knows who the other person is. We're just constantly confusing these people for other people. And at first I thought that it was sort of this confirmation that Patrick Bateman isn't real. And then later, of course, this is followed up by that statement, like that monologue or whatever about Patrick Bateman not being real. And I was like, oh, there was never such a thing. But I do think that Ellis / probably just good literature in general does allow itself to have multiple interpretation, and it probably is built in where it's just like, you can think of it this way, you can think of it that way. And that's what I really liked about it. I really liked that I was given some freedom to sort of figure this out on my own, or at least like have my own feelings about it, where I think I would have disliked it if it had kind of definitively said one way or another, like, I'm either covering for you, or just like, no, you're like crazy.
Right.
Because I think that abstracts the narrator in such a way that it kind of like allows it to dissolve like a tablet into the water of everything, where it's just like, oh, all of you are like messed up.
Yeah.
All of you are poison.
Including maybe even the girl reading this.
Damn.
But also Reagan, right?
Yes.
Because he appears on TV and he's just another fucking Patrick Bateman.
So fun to hear just little snippets of his voice, and you hear Iran-Contra,
Robert
and then you
Bork.
hear Robert Bork, and I'm like, oh, fuck me, dude.
And I should also note the final shot is Bateman. He's in front of a door that says, "This is not an exit" on it. And that's important because those are the final words of the book.
Yep.
And it just sort of does a slow zoom in on his face, eventually ending with a tight focus on his eyes as we hear the final monologue.
There are no more barriers to cross. All I have in common with the uncontrollable and the insane, the vicious and the evil, all the mayhem I have caused and my utter indifference toward it, I have now surpassed. My pain is constant and sharp, and I do not hope for a better world for anyone. In fact, I want my pain to be inflicted on others. I want no one to escape. But even after admitting this, there is no catharsis. My punishment continues to elude me, and I gain no deeper knowledge of myself. No new knowledge can be extracted from my telling. This confession has meant nothing.
He says that there's no catharsis here. And the movie is really, really good, and I'm sure the book is too, at maintaining this sense of nothing is going to be settled today.
Yeah.
And it's not even an ambiguity between two different realities, where he either is this killer and everyone's covering, or he's not. It's spread out, like you said, it's dissolved into so many things, where there are multiple modal realities that could explain everything that we have read.
Yeah, and like, this is not an exit. It kind of gave me like samsara Buddhism vibes, just like it's all suffering. You know what I mean? Like, it's suffering and it never stops, and it's a loop, and it just keeps going and going, and the refusal of catharsis at the end.
He doesn't die, he doesn't get arrested.
Yeah.
So he's still out there.
Yeah, and like the refusal of catharsis kind of brings the viewer or reader into that as well, where it's just like, and you're in it too, because you don't get to the satisfaction of
it's very meta, it's very postmodern, and it's also very like, hey, that guy right around the corner might be a Patrick Bateman, right? Like, this is not a subtle book by any stretch of the imagination, but I appreciate that about it. I really do.
Yeah. So what have we learned?
What is the lesson?
Nothing. There is no catharsis, Brian.
This is not an exit.
Yeah, which is also the title of the final song of the American Psycho musical.
I need to hear that.
Yeah, and speaking of songs too, the credits are really interesting. I don't know if you sat and just listened to the credits. Usually a credit song, it's going to play all the way through, then you get the next one, then you get the adult contemporary remix that's going to end up on Delilah later. This credit sequence has like 5 or 6 songs in it. It doesn't play through a whole song. It's like you're listening to a CD and changing tracks as you're going.
Yeah, and
through
they're
it.
abrupt and they're a little bit off-putting. These
Yeah,
changes.
I've never seen anyone do this with credits before. I've never noticed it, at least. It's really cool.
It's really, really
like
cool.
A chopped up quality.
Yeah.
Ooh. They took an axe to the credits.
Yep, took an axe to him. A chainsaw, dropped a chainsaw from several flights up.
Oh, yeah.
Well, I'm going to make a little cut here. I'm going to cut in, and I'm going to say,
oh, ow.
JP.
Owie.
You've spent 3 hours with us now talking about American Psycho, and we so fucking
The prophecy was fulfilled!
really appreciate you coming on. This has been such a great conversation.
Genuinely.
I want to now give you the opportunity to tell our wonderful listeners where they should go and find you, where they can get their hands on your writing, and just anything else that maybe you want to say about American Psycho as we round the closing bend here before we get AJ's beautiful closing thoughts.
Yes. So I have a few projects coming up. 2 of them are books. If you want to hear about them, the best way to do that and to read my other writing is on my Substack, which is johnpaulbrammer.substack.com. And, reading American Psycho and then watching the movie, it just made me think that I want to be crazier. Like, I don't know if that's the right takeaway from anything, but, making things that endure, making the sort of stuff that can be translated across mediums and that actually lasts in the imagination. Sometimes those things require you to be a little crazy, and sometimes it's going to make other people upset. And Bret Easton Ellis at his best, because I have seen him at his worst when it comes to his public output.
Wait a minute, you haven't seen the Canyons?
Yes, I'm going to do that right away. Actually, like nothing has ever been more up my alley. Yeah, like I'm actually genuinely excited to watch the Canyons. But yeah, like Bret Easton Ellis at his best, I think that you do have an obligation to write the thing that's in your head and to write it truthfully and to not care so much who's going to call you a bad person for it. And Bret Easton Ellis, thank you for being so awful, because I feel such freedom.
Well, I just want to say, as a longtime fan of your writing, JP, that I think the Melania review that you gave fairly recently is a wonderful new step into a wonderful new stage of your career. I think that it is, if anyone listening is a fan of the interstitials that I write for this podcast, JP wrote a much better one in his Melania review, and I think you should really seek it out. But also, just like, as somebody who read Hola Papi quite a bit over the years, and how empathetic you were to all those questions and how much you really helped people along the way, I just want to say thank you on behalf of all of us who got to take part in your knowledge over the years, because you always did it with such a wonderful blend of comedy, and while also just like really answering very difficult questions. And I don't think I've ever seen anyone do it better than you. So thank you for
so
that.
Much.
Yeah.
And I'm about to get so much worse, so I really appreciate it.
It's all downhill from here, baby.
You came on a show called The Worst of All Possible Worlds. That's where you're going to end up.
That's what we're here to do.
Absolutely.
We're the tipping point.
Should also say, if you are listening to us for the first time, dear listener, welcome. We're so happy to have you here. We do episodes just like this every week, and every other week we do them on our Patreon, which is patreon.com/worstofall. Signing up for $5 a month gives you access to all of those episodes, as well as access to the pre-sale only tickets for the live show that we are doing in May. So go ahead and check us out over there if you've got a hankering for even more media analysis that's sort of in this vein. In terms of other stuff that's kind of like this episode, honestly, one of the closest things that I can think of is our coverage of Left Behind, where we are comparing the movies to the book. And similarly, we read excerpts. They're certainly not nearly as good of a book, but,
fewer books by straight lunatics, more books by gay lunatics.
That's what I'm saying. That's what I'm saying.
Great point.
But we so appreciate having you here. And thank you so much for listening.
There is this idea of Patrick Bateman.
Oh.
Some kind of abstraction, right? And it is an abstraction that I see people pursuing more and more, recently, as Brian says, we have just been in one very long 80s for the past like 20 some odd years. And we've just been going in this loop over and over again. And these look maxers and all looks maxers, I don't know, the plurals, have been trying to get this ideal that if you can perfect your body, if you can quote unquote perfect yourself, and by that I mean abide by these very limited ideas of what society deems as being attractive, as being wealthy, as being well off, that you will be happy. And I think what both the book and the movie are cautionary tales about being like, look, you can pursue all of this stuff that you want, but there's nothing there. In fact, by trying to contort yourself and not be your truest version of you, you become a psychopath. You take away all of your humanity and you become a shell. So be who you are. Because if you don't, if you follow down the path of Patrick Bateman, you, like him, will simply not be there. I'm the worst of all possible AJs.
I'm the worst of all possible Bryans.
And I'm the worst of all possible Joshes. See you next week.